As if you do a lot of speaking, you can develop the capability, and our president is great at it, to just continually talk and make sound waves through the air.
You mean BS stuff?
And if you inflect your voice,
Can you say that?
If you inflect your voice,
Oh, you can say initials.
if you bring it down to here, if you go very quietly like this, if you whisper like this, people hang with you, and you can be saying, like I am, exactly nothing.
Joe's freaking out in the control room, and you can't hear anything.
You could be saying exactly nothing, but it sounds so interesting, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. People
Okay.
will pay attention to you.
I'll have to do this for 30 minutes until we get something going here. No, we in fact, we have an unbelievable show today. Not like the boring show yesterday, where Mark and I almost got placed inside the paddy wagon, and those are nice smelling places in the Florida
Talk
sun.
about socks.
They're not quite air conditioned these days, but we avoided being a guest of the Boca Raton Police Department by our professionalism and maintaining the high moral ground, and we've identified a collaborator in Florida Atlantic University. We're going to get into that a little bit later.
Ooh.
For those of you who watched and listened yesterday, we had a confrontation with the police as the school developed a default position. That's what we're calling it. When you refuse to tell us what your position is, and as a result, a particular development occurs, that's your default position, folks. Sorry. And we probably have today, Mark, thanks to the video you edited. What? Oh, yes, on the video. All right, we'll bring him on, and 3:15 is when he's supposed to come on, so make sure everything's good. And Mark, you're editing overnight of the video. And
Splendid.
The wee hours of the morning.
Wee hours of the morning, and the source material you got from DR, one of our photographers, and the use of publishing, and we probably have, I guess, in the FAU legal conference room right now, they're tuned in and watching and listening. Hi, everybody at FAU legal conference room. I'm sure you're
And
listening
media
and watching.
relations.
They're all together.
Yeah.
They're all together going, what the hell are we going to do? They outsmarted us. And the school lawyer's probably going, they didn't outsmart me, I've been a lawyer so long and all this stuff. Well, sorry, guys. You want to play the game of avoiding your responsibility. And I understand it. You got nailed last Wednesday when we were there with no stated policy and illegally suppressing not just the press, we are members of the press, but just citizens, and selectively discriminating vis-a-vis the Muslim women, Noor, whatever her name is, selecting two of our guys, and this is all on videotape. We haven't showed you this tape yet. Two of our guys throwing them out because Noor Fazzi, is that her name? Noor Fazzi didn't like one of the guys. Oh, okay, maybe Saudi Arabia or maybe in Palestine. Where's
There
Palestine?
is no
Where's
Palestine.
Palestine? Maybe in some Islamically controlled, totalitarian, Sharia-compliant country, you can selectively point to somebody and say they are not allowed to be here, like Jews and Christians in Saudi Arabia or Yemen, or we can go on and on and on. But you can't do that in America, and you certainly can't do that in Boca Raton, where we live and play. So that doesn't fly. So we will publish your names, the school officials. You will see a FOIA request. You will see all kinds of things taking place in the near future. And no, we want them to burn their emails. If they burn their emails, then they're really screwed. You know that? Oh, my God.
Boy.
Twinkle Toast. We need more equipment in this room.
We need more stuff
So
on the floor.
many of you may not have the faintest clue as to what I'm talking about. My name is Tom Trento Vision. I run the United West, an activism organization dedicated to fighting Islamic Jihad and fighting the Muslim Brotherhood. And in that capacity, we have found that the academy in the United States has become a hotbed for Islamic cultural terrorism. And we've been on scores of campuses all over the United States, fighting alongside very brave Jewish and Christian students trying to stand against the Muslim Student Association, the Muslim Student Union, all these Muslim Brotherhood organizations, by recognition of a federally adjudicated lawsuit, 2009 Holy Land Foundation. So when we say the Muslim Student Association is a Muslim Brotherhood entity, that's what our federal government has concluded through a lawsuit. So we're not just making this stuff up, folks, at FAU. And Students for Justice in Palestine, that's another Muslim Brotherhood entity. These are front groups for cultural or kinetic jihad. We know that. We know what the game is. So in any event, we had a little run-in with the federales at FAU, and we'll maybe play some of that later. But we have three outstanding guests today, three experts on national security issues, on foreign policy. First up in a couple of moments is an individual with an outstanding academic career and a fascinatingly interesting theory as to how to solve the problem in Israel of a two-state solution. How about 3 states? Oh, no. How about 4 states? Oh, no. 5 states? No, 6 states. 7. How about 8 states? How about an 8-state solution? Yeah. It may sound a little bizarre, but when you hear the intellectual analysis that deals with the facts on the ground, it's going to, in those of you who think, it's going to stimulate a tremendous amount of thought on your part. That's up in the first hour. Second hour, we have from Washington, D.C., the founder, director of Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney. If he could make it to the studio, he's running around South Florida. If he can make it into the studio, he will be here. If not, he will either, I'm going to need that in a couple of seconds. He will either Skype in or call in. We will have Frank, and you can call in. You can call in at any time, 888-565-1470, 888-565-1470 here on WNN. 1470 in Boca Raton, Florida. In our third hour, we're going to have someone that is new to our show, not new to us. And certainly, what was that?
I'm sorry.
Is there a mouse afoot in our studio? Oh, no. It was CJ sneezing. So no big deal. We're used to it. In our third hour, we will have someone new to Trento Vision, but a colleague of mine, one of the co-authors of Sharia, The Threat to America. We will have the intrepid, the amazing Diana West. And
she is amazing.
She is one of the most articulate writers out there who has the ability to do the extensive and very deep research into issues, but then write with clarity. Her prose is her sarcasm drips at times. The beauty of her writing is amazing. I remember reading some of the drafts that the chapter she wrote for Sharia. I was riding back on an airplane and editing some of the drafts for Sharia, The Threat to America, and her chapter just brought me to tears. I wrote her a note. I said, you're bringing me to tears. We'll have her on in our third hour, 5 to 6, and she has become an expert on the Benghazi situation and Brennan and all of that. And last I heard, but CJ, you could certainly check, tomorrow the Senate Intelligence Committee, made up of 15 people, 8 Democrats, 7 Republicans, headed up by Dianne Feinstein, will vote to send Brennan to the full Senate or vote not. I think that's still on. We're going to check. But right now, let's bring in our special guest. And is he with us, Mike? Okay. Let's put him in. And for those of you watching, you can see our guest has Skyped in. For those of you listening, you can listen on your car radios. You can listen on the internet, WNNradio.com. Or you can listen on that old favorite of ours, iHeartRadio. Download iHeartRadio. Once you download it, you got to put a couple little things in, like your name and zip code, all the typical stuff. Then you search for WNN. WNN. That's all you search for in South Florida. You'll find it. Push the button. And you are rocking and rolling, listening to us in clear digital audio anywhere your little phone travels. So, Mordecai Kedar, hello, sir. How are you today?
Could not be better.
Well, that is great. I hear you are in the state of Florida enjoying a speaking tour and the beautiful weather, correct?
Correct. On the west coast of Florida, on the Mexico Bay seashore, with
Yeah.
great people who arranged great events here in Venice and in North Port and other places in this area. Great place, great people.
Excellent. Glad to have you here in the United States. I know you come back regularly. You speak here, and you're on a 1-month speaking tour. We're not on Tea Party Community. He can't hear. Who
Joe
can?
can't hear.
Is that mic on? Because Joe can't hear.
Yeah, the mic's on.
Okay. Well, we'll tweak the audio.
Mic's on.
And Tea Party Community does not have us broadcasting right now. At least I can't see it. Okay. Let's introduce you to our audience, and we found the best way to do that instead of me going through a list. Share your typical introduction, who you are, what you do, and then we really want to get into the issues that you have expertise on, in particular this 8-state solution. So tell us who you are, Mordecai.
Well, I'm a lecturer and researcher about Islam and the Arab world
We're not going
from
on
Israel,
with him.
from Bar-Ilan University. I'm the director of the Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam, which is right now under formation in that University of Bar-Ilan. I'm also a member in the well-known Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. And in addition,
You hear me?
I'm a lecturer
He
in the
can.
Okay.
The radio
Department
can.
of Arabic. My fields is Arab societies, Islam, modern Islam, Islamic movements, Islamic radicalism, gender issues in Islam, and state and society in the Arab world.
Okay.
These are more or less the subjects in this country as well, in addition to some Israeli issues like the elections and the changes which Israel goes through, especially because of the so-called Arab Spring.
Okay, very good. What we're going to have to do, Mr. Kedar here. It's okay? Oh, it's okay. Okay, we were working on the audio here. We had a little problem on our side, but you are fine. But keep your cell phone by. We may need you to call the studio line. You want him to do that? Okay. If you can, do you have a
Yeah.
cell phone close by to you?
I will have it.
Yes?
Yeah, I'll have it.
Yeah, if you could, I'm going to give you the studio line. We're going to keep you on Skype to see you, but if you call the studio line, our listening audience, all the people in South Florida, will be able to hear you better. The Skype connection's a little rough on the audio side. So here, you can take this number down and call it. And yep, that's that number, 888-565-1470. So you'll speak on the phone. You may have to mute your audio on Skype. People will see you on Skype, and they'll hear you through our audio going out on the radio. It's a nice, clean audio connection, and you have so much to say that we don't want anyone to miss a bit. And we have you for about a half hour, so we're in good shape. While Mordecai Kedar is calling in and getting that sorted out, my name is Tom Trento, Trento Vision. We have CJ with us, Mike Mark. We have a special guest in the studio, and we are Trento Vision, national security radio, dealing with homeland issues, foreign issues. Our expertise is in the area of confronting the Muslim Brotherhood and and we do a tremendous amount of work defending Israel's right to exist. And last
Isn't
night,
that big of you?
yeah, I know. Thank you, thank you. And last night we were on the campus of Florida Atlantic University confronting the Students for Justice in Palestine, a bogus Muslim Brotherhood front group. Mr. Kedar, what is your 8-state solution? It looks like many analysts that understand the Islamic threat doctrine are coming to the conclusion that when Hamas wrote their constitution and said that Israel will exist until Islam obliterates it, that the Sharia-compliant Muslims truly mean that, and this is not an issue of peace and land for peace and all of that, but it's a doctrinal issue. How does your thesis that there's an 8-state solution or 8-state consideration, how does that provide a solution to bring peace into the state of Israel?
Well, to begin with, the fact that Arabs in general, Palestinians also in general, and Hamas in particular, do not see any way to live along with Israel regardless of any borders. They don't see any possibility that there will be any Jewish state anywhere in the world, not to mention the Middle East. Therefore, their ideology is the last thing which I care about. Anyway, they don't want me in any inch of the land of Israel. This is why the solution has nothing to do with any ideology which is in the Middle East. I deal with sociology rather than the ideology. When I talk about sociology, I cannot ignore the fact that the Arab societies in the Middle East, 90% of them are tribal societies. This is something which is rather hard to be understood in this country, because in the United States there are no tribes. So it's hard to explain what is tribalism. However, this is the basic cornerstone of the culture in the Middle East. People are connected by familial relations. Those who are the tribe have their own rules. Everybody is related to each other. Like, imagine that Hollywood, Florida, or Boca Raton, everybody is related from the family point of view. Everybody is brothers or cousins or second cousins or third cousins. And people get married only in Boca Raton. They don't want their daughters to get married to anybody else because they are not from our tribe. People will open businesses only with people from Boca Raton because they are the only tribe which they would open business with. And Boca Raton is a militia, fighting militia, armed to its teeth, and nobody wants to mess with them, because first they will kill you, then they will ask who you were and what you wanted. And this is, in a nutshell, what tribalism is, where every tribe has its own language and leadership and laws, and the laws are contradictory to the laws of the state, and they couldn't care less about the state. The only thing which they are loyal to is the tribe, and the state can jump in the ocean, not only in the lake. So this is more or less, in a nutshell, what tribalism is. This thing in the Middle East is not only alive and kicking, it is alive and killing. And this is why every state which was not established upon this culture is a failing state. Iraq is a state of a conglomerate of 74 tribes which kill each other daily. Syria is a state of tribes and ethnic groups and religions and sects which kill each other en masse, as you can see 70,000 were already killed during the last 2 years.
Mr. Kedar, let me ask you a question, because this is fascinating. If your thesis is true, that tribalism is the fundamental philosophical block upon which a unique group of people organize themselves to live in a structure that's called a society in some sense. If your thesis is true, the tribalism, how does that correspond with the American concept that within the heart of every human being is a desire for democracy, for freedom, for individualism? How do you reconcile those two?
I don't even try to reconcile, because the American concept about everyone wants to be democratic is totally wrong when it comes to the Middle East. Big time wrong. Because democracy is a cake which is made with very, very specific ingredients, like human rights and political freedoms and minority rights and women's rights and gays and lesbians' rights and freedom of religion and freedom from religion and freedom of assembly and freedom of speech and freedom of and freedom of whatever you like. All these freedoms in the Middle East create, all these ingredients of this cake create very, very severe allergy. What do you mean? In the Middle East, freedom of women? Women can choose their spouses in the Middle East. They are forced to marry the cousin, because this is the culture, the tribal culture of the Middle East. Do you have a freedom of religion? Freedom from religion? If a Muslim announces that he left Islam, he will be decapitated in no time. So all these freedoms, which are the cornerstones of democracy, do not exist almost totally in the Middle East.
Okay, so, man.
So talking about everybody wants democracy, maybe in this fortunate island between the Atlantic and the Pacific. There are some other cultures in the world which do not believe in life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. They have totally different dream.
Okay, so that's your and that, I mean, it's a very compelling argument. And CJ and others in here, we have a million questions for you, but we want you to develop your whole theory of the 8-state solution.
The theory actually says that instead of creating a state based on a nation which doesn't exist, Palestinian nation, just like the Syrian nation or the Iraqi nation or the Sudani nation, these nations, and the Afghani nation as well, those nations do not exist. There are ethnic groups and tribes and religions and sects. This is what there is in the Middle East. Nation does not exist there. Maybe the Arab nation, but it's anyway fragmented to tribes. So instead of creating a virtual state, which will be called Palestinian state, based on a virtual nation which doesn't exist, Palestinian nation, we have to establish states according to the tribes, just like the Emirates in the Gulf. As you might know, Kuwait and Qatar and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah and Fujairah and so forth, all these Emirates are stable, not because of the oil. Iraq is also oil, it's not stable. These Emirates are stable because every one of them is one single tribe. And this is what creates stability in the Middle East. And on social stability, you can have stable political arena, and on a stable political arena, you can build skyscrapers with helicopter pads on the roofs. In other countries, like Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Yemen, Libya, of course, all these tribal states are failing states in spite of the oil, because they are fragmented and mayhem, as we see between all those groups. Therefore, in order to achieve stability between Israel and its neighbors, we have to establish 8 emirates. One already exists in Gaza. We don't love it. We don't kiss them, and they don't hug us. But there is a state in Gaza which we should recognize the existence of the state, because it sets its borders and government and legislative body and judicial system and the education system and borders and whatever they need in order to have a state. And something which looks like a state and walks like a state and quacks like a state is a state. We need 7 additional states on the cities of the so-called West Bank, one in Jericho for the tribe of the Arikat, one in Ramallah for the tribe of the Houthi, one in Nablus for the 3 tribes who live together very nicely, Al-Masri, Shaka, and Tukan, and another one in Hebron for the 5 tribes of this town, of this city, the Jabri, the leaders, and Kawasmi, and Nache, and Abu Smena, and Tamimi, and so forth, in the 7 towns or 7 cities of the West Bank. There should be emirate in each and every one of them, separate from the other. Israel should forever stick to the rural areas, because those hills will never turn into Beverly Hills. They might more probably turn into Hamas hills if they have a territorial contiguity, which will turn into a terrorist contiguity. They don't need it, we don't need it, nobody needs it. This is the plan, to have 7 emirates on the West Bank. 1 emirate already exists in Gaza, and this is how stability will be achieved in the Palestinian arena, and Israel has security and prosperity. Both sides, or both, or everybody in this structure can share good life, high tech, good health, good relations, no war, no bloodshed, and this is the only solution, not only for the Palestinians, but for the entire Middle East. Unfortunately, there are some states which think that dead body politics like Afghanistan and Iraq should be resuscitated, but believe me, nobody will sit around one fire and nobody sing kumbaya with anybody else. This is the problem of the Middle East, the tribalism and the sectarianism, and the fact that nobody is loyal to the state. Rather, people are loyal to the traditional framework. States should have been established on the traditional frameworks, like in the Gulf, like the Gulf Emirates, which has stability. Unfortunately, the colonialism, the British and the French and the Italian, created illegitimate states with illegitimate regimes, and we see today in the Arab so-called Spring the deterioration of these illegitimate entities and the illegitimate regimes who butcher their citizens in masses. And this is the only result of the fact that those states are not established on traditional basis.
Okay, very interesting, and I mean, this raises a million questions, and I'm sure you've dealt with all of them. Let me ask you, before CJ asks you a couple of questions here, and if anyone would like to get in with Mordecai Kedar, a professor and a sociologist who has been dealing with this for quite a few years, and his thesis.
I spent 25 years in the Israeli intelligence, add to this 17 years in the university, and now in the Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam, which I'm the director of. Definitely we deal with this. By the way, we are still looking for the men who would like the center to be on his father's or his mother's name.
Oh, okay. So you're looking for someone to step up to the plate and help out a little bit.
Yes, mainly because research centers, especially in this country, in the United States of America, many of them were bought by Saudi money, by Qatari money, Kuwaiti money, Libyan money, in London as well, and in Britain as well. we in Israel, in the Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam at Bar-Ilan University, we will never be bought by any Gulf money, any oil money. We will say the truth about the Middle East rather than dreams or lies which are disseminated about the Middle East, like the book which was written in Carter Center in Emory University in Atlanta, Palestine, Peace, not apartheid, as if Israel is an apartheid state. This recently was sponsored, the center is sponsored by Saudi money, big time, and this is why we will never be part of this scheme of lies which come out from research centers which operate by Gulf money.
Well, if somebody listening, and we're going from North Miami up to Orlando, if someone is listening right now and would like to contact you to possibly have their mother or father's name on the center, how would they get in touch with you?
Very good. I have a telephone number. 917.
917.
868.
Do you sure you want to give this out?
Yeah.
Because you could have a lot of crazy people calling.
Yeah, you can email us the...
What's that?
After 868, 3551.
Okay, now, let's do it again. You want to give it out. Give it out completely. Go ahead.
Look, we Israelis are not afraid of anyone.
Go ahead. Give the number out completely.
917-868-3551.
Okay, there we go for Mordecai Kedar. The initial question, and I'm sure you dealt with this, is all right. You wave a magic wand and you have 8 emirates, one of which is Gaza. How does that change the fact that all these people still hate Jews?
Yeah.
Believe me, Muslims hate Jews between Indonesia in the east and Los Angeles in the west. This is no news, and we live with this for 3,000 years, and especially since Islam came to the world in the 7th century in order to replace both Judaism and Christianity. So we got used to be hated. We don't like it, but we live with this. And, look, in the Middle East, peace is given only to the invincible, not to the one who seeks peace, not to the one who begs for peace, not to the one who crawls and licks others' feet. Peace, according to the tribal tradition and culture, is given only to the one who succeeds to convince the others that they should better not mess with him, to the invincible. And this is how Israel succeeded to survive so far. Unfortunately, very few Israeli leaders understand this, and they come out every time and again in all kinds of initiatives for peace. They don't understand that in the Middle East, the one who wants peace actually is the defeated one who is now wanted to negotiate on the terms of his defeat.
Right.
This is what they understand in the Middle East when Israel seeks peace. Israel should tell them, guys, we are 65 years, in spite of your hatred, in spite of your wars, we need you like a headache. If you want peace, what do you give us for peace?
Like
and
this
is what should Israel tell all those who are around Israel and do not like to accept Israel. And let me tell you, since I speak Arabic fluently, and my Arabic, by the way, is better than my English, and I appear time and again on Al Jazeera and others, believe me, they respect me because I tell them the truth in their faces. And this is what I believe. I believe that a spade should be named a spade, nothing around and nothing instead. And this is what the Middle East understands. If you come and you speak Arabic to them, and you don't crawl, and you don't apologize for breathing, and you don't apologize for living on your forefathers' land, and you tell them exactly what the truth is, so they respect you. And this is what the Middle East is.
Well, we all saw your debate on Al Jazeera, and
Al Gore's era now.
Yeah, Al Gore's era now, but you kicked their butt. That in the old American lingo, you kicked their butt on Al Jazeera. CJ, you have any questions for the doctor?
I sure do. I have a few, actually, if that's okay. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm CJ.
Nice to meet you, CJ.
Thank you. Are you looking at the United Arab Emirates as pretty much the successful model for this collection of tribal city-states? And if so, how would it work for states that don't have any oil wealth to buy off their populations?
I don't know if you know, but Dubai has no oil and no gas.
Okay.
Dubai has only three things: sand,
skyscrapers,
sand,
and sand.
This is what Dubai has.
Okay.
And Dubai is so wealthy to a degree that Dubai actually manages the harbors of the United States of America.
Right.
The first sand they turned into real estate. The second one they turned into businesses and free trade zones. And the third sand they turned into attractions for tourists. So since they don't fight each other, they have time to develop their economy. And this is the secret.
Okay, so you think then that the different tribes of the West Bank, once they achieve these miniature city statehoods, they will abandon their so-called Palestinian identities, their aspirations for taking over Israel, and they will not vote Hamas on their next elections, and they will not vote to be governed by the Sharia laws. They'll just become like Dubai?
These are three different questions. First of all, the Palestinian identity was never succeeded to replace the loyalty of the people to the tribe and to the clan. This is only very shallow patina above the tribalism, which is not only alive and kicking, it is alive and killing.
Okay.
So this is about the Palestinian nationhood, or whatever you can call it. It is shared only by a very, very small group of intellectuals which do not share this tribalism. It is not shared by the final rank of the people. Second thing, they will not love Israel, as they don't love Israel anyway. So this will not change, and this is a given, just like the fact that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. This is not something which we can change, and because we are Jews and we are Israelis, and Muslims will hate Jews anyway, because this is part of their culture, because it's just like it states in the Quran, that the Jews, as you know, are descendants of apes and swines. Since we Israelis cannot rewrite the Quran, this will remain, and they will hear it every Friday.
Good point.
They will hear it every Friday in the Friday sermon.
Okay.
Being successful, look, there are small states in the world, Monaco and Liechtenstein and San Marino and the Vatican and Gibraltar, and believe me, nobody there suffers from claustrophobia.
I know, but they're not Muslims.
No. Muslims are human beings, just like Europeans, and they have fear of small places, just like others, or they don't have fear of small places.
No, that's not what I mean.
So I don't.
Let's get Mark in. We're starting to push the clock a little. You could stay longer than 3:45. Can you stay a few more minutes?
Yes, it's okay with me.
Okay, Mark has a question for you. And then what I see is, I'll say this, then you can ask. Part of the advantage of this is you have broken apart a monolithic hatred.
Right.
You've broken it apart and letting them run their own little operations.
Yeah. Now, would they be militarized, though?
Mark, you ask, and then we'll...
Well, my question is pretty basic. With your solution, are you assuming that they actually want to have a solution, that they actually want to have peace? because I don't see.
Or that
I think
they want to govern themselves at all.
I don't see. I see that as the first step of the problem is actually they want to have peace and they want to have a solution. It seems like the Palestinian issue to me is simply a tool for others to look at them as refugees and to use them as martyrs, if you will, for the world. And that's where I see the major problem with any solution, not just yours, and with any solution, that they just do not want to have a solution.
Refugees are one problem, and the cities are different problems because these societies usually do not mingle. They live apart from each other until this very day, unfortunately. The first attempt, or the first pilot, which I would implement in the West Bank, this program, is in Hebron. Because in Hebron, the society is very traditional, and they're already a king for Hebron. One of the sheikhs of the Jabri tribe, he is viewed by everybody as the leader of Hebron. I met with him several times. He has nothing against Israel. He just wants to live in peace besides Israel. He has nothing to do with the other the so-called Palestinians from Ramallah or from Jericho. He hates them. He doesn't want them. And this is why he has no problem to establish a Palestinian or a Hebron state in Hebron. He has absolutely no problem with this because it has nothing to do with the other cities of the West Bank. So I would start with Hebron, and since this could be a very successful model, it could be copied and implemented by other cities as well.
But that still didn't answer my question. The ones who don't want peace, it doesn't have to. They're the ones who keep launching the rockets and bombs and keep instigating.
Yeah, how would this implementation stop the Hamas from firing rockets into Sderot?
Yeah.
It will be much easier for Israel to deal with some jihadists who launch missiles if they are in a city, within a city where Israel is around them, while it's much easier in this way, rather than Israel is one side of the Green Line, for example, and they have the whole space of the West Bank to hide inside the mountains, in caves, and wherever they are. Israel should forever stick to the rural areas, and Israel should offer Israeli citizenship to the villagers in the West Bank, while set free all those cities to establish their own emirate.
Just stay there. CJ, pick that up.
Okay, I'll pick
Mark's
it up.
coming down
All right. What would you say to the Israelis who think that why should you give them anything at all? When the modern state of Israel was created, it was basically split. It was a partition. It was Jordan and Israel. Now you have to carve out Israel, and that belongs to the Jewish people, and give it away to your enemies. Why don't they go set up city-states somewhere in Jordan?
Well, the era which you could take populations and move them from country to country is over. It was in the 40s, maybe in the 50s. Today, Israel cannot even take a jihadist from the West Bank to send him to Gaza. This time is over, and Israel cannot send away even one person from the West Bank, only if he wants to go by himself. So this is why I take the situation as it is. I accept it. I don't fight it.
Okay.
And I deal with this by using sociological tools, which are well known and well accepted in the Arab world, rather than American or European tools of nationalism, patriotism, or other isms which fail totally all over the Middle East. We should follow the sociology rather than political issues or dreams of some, like Shimon Peres,
right,
who still dreams about...
he lives in Twinkle City.
Sitting around one fire and getting kumbaya together.
Yeah. Can I ask you, amongst these...
By the way, the whole description of this plan is described very well in a website named PalestinianEmirates.com, PalestinianEmirates.com, which a very good friend of mine, Frank Pomerantz, arranged, and he edited it, and he takes care of it. Please go to this website, PalestinianEmirates.com. It describes the whole story.
Okay. Can I ask you, sociologically, how many Arab citizens are there in the state of Israel?
Inside the state of Israel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Israeli
how many Israeli
citizens,
Arabs are there?
Israeli citizens in Israel are some 20% of the state. Most of them are Muslims. They live, most of them in the north, in the Galilee, some of them in the center, and another concentration in the south, Bedouins.
And do they exhibit the same tribal characteristics and in their social organization?
Definitely.
Definitely.
The villages are tribal. People tend to marry their daughters only within the tribe. Only if a daughter is 38 years old and she has a short leg, they will marry her off to somebody who will take her, even if it's from another country. Really, I'm serious.
Oh, no.
Mordecai, what when somebody in Nablus or Hebron or even in Gaza, when someone either goes through the educational system or goes overseas to France or Europe or America and gets multiple degrees, gets a PhD in engineering, like many Muslims do here in the United States, but they stay in Israel. Does that mitigate their understanding or their DNA directed tribalism? Do they start to break out of that, or is it all encompassing?
Well, you touched the most aching point in this issue. Tribalism could be challenged only by immigration. As long as the person lives in his homeland and his hometown or home village, he remains part of the clan usually. If he decides, because what he sees what happens in Europe or in America, if he decides to take his carry-on on his backpack and to emigrate and to leave, not only to leave the homeland, to leave the culture of the homeland, he can become a very good American citizen and come to this country and become an American if he adopts the American dream. This happens, but whenever he leaves, he doesn't have any influence on the society which he left behind in the homeland. This is why, even if he comes, he, in many cases, will feel strange because he doesn't want now to be looked upon. Whatever he does, everybody looks at him. Everybody tries to marry him off inside the clan. He doesn't want it, so he will leave again. This is what happens to too many people when they emigrate out. However, when they come to this country, to America, here they find Islam as the new adhesive which makes them into a new society, to a degree that even in I-95, the central highway of the East Coast, not far from Hollywood, yesterday I took a picture of a road sign, tremendous thing. I couldn't believe my eyes. A road sign which says, and I read, what do Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad have in common? The answer is Islam. Excuse me?
Right.
Abraham and Jesus and Moses share Islam? Excuse me?
That's a billboard campaign down here in South Florida. That's their propaganda. But yeah, good point. Sure, of course.
Well, I'm wondering because we see so many
which I saw
in this country.
Outrageous. Muhammad, mercy to mankind. Excuse me, mercy to mankind. 9/11 was mercy to mankind. The Iran-Iraq war was mercy to mankind. The Turks, when they butcher the Kurds in Turkey, is mercy to mankind. And the Algerians who butcher each other are mercy to mankind. Let me ask you something, Tom. If somebody would have a road sign, rape your daughter, Would you let it have such an outrageous thing? What is this? This is sheer lies.
I know. This is what we fight. This is what we fight.
This is what we fight all the time.
This is the civilization jihad by the Brotherhood here in the United States.
Yeah.
Tom, let me tell you, political correctness will kill America after it killed Europe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Mordecai Kedar, we're gonna have to wind it down. We're coming to an end. Why don't you take about 30 seconds to a minute and share your challenge to America. You've been with the Israeli intelligence for 25 years. You've taught for 17 years. You're one of the leading academics in the Middle East on this. This isn't your first rodeo. What is your message to America right now?
America today, from the Islamic point of view, looks like Europe 15 years ago. Exactly. If you want to know how America will look in 15 years from today, look at Europe today. I'll give you a good example. A friend from France, an Algerian colleague, told me specifically that Algerians do not move from Algeria to France. They move Algeria to France.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Guys, if America doesn't wake up in 15 years, America will find itself just like what Europe is.
Very interesting. Okay, well, on those frightening words, we regrettably have to let...
What a fascinating show. Thank you so much.
Yes, it was. We have to let Mordecai Kedar go. And
Mordecai.
You will... yes, Mordecai. Yes, I'm learning Hebrew. You will come back again, right, sir?
Please.
Thank you very much. Whenever you can, you can call me to Israel. It's almost the same thing from talking from Freud.
Well, my colleague Frank Gaffney just walked in. He'll be live in the studio. Frank, myself,
my regards.
I will. Frank, myself, and some others will be in Israel in October on a tour, so we will look you up for sure.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Okay, you take care now.
Bye-bye.
See you.
All right. Wow, that was fascinating.
That was so interesting. There is so much to think about now to rethink our approach to the cultural jihad in this country.
Well, yeah, and again, Mordecai Kedar is not somebody coming out of Columbia saying, I got a crazy idea. What about this? These are long thought out, long developed ideas. And I like the fact that when you break this monolithic group up into smaller groups where they have a way of working together. But we'll deal with that. And Frank Gaffney in the top of the hour. Hang in there, everybody.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike. If living healthier longer is your goal, you should join me on my radio show, Healthy Talk, every Wednesday at 1 o'clock on AM 1470, WNN, brought to you by the Life Extension Foundation.
This is Steve Kane, and I want to introduce you to our family dentist, Dr. Michael Blum, at the Center for the Dental Arts in downtown Fort Lauderdale, where you can attain the perfect smile at a price you could afford. In fact, Dr. Blum will beat any advertised price on any dental procedure, including crowns, caps, bridges, yes, even on porcelain veneers. You just bring in any dental ad, Dr. Blum will beat the price, pure and simple. Dr. Blum's porcelain veneers are manufactured at the same dental lab as those upscale Boca dentists who charge thousands of dollars for the very same veneers that Dr. Blum offers at a small fraction of the price. We chose Dr. Blum for our family because of his 20 years of experience and his reputation for being one of the finest dentists in South Florida. Evening appointments are available for your convenience. Call 954-463-4999 or go online at blumdentist.com. Tell him Steve Kane sent you.
The bond between a child and a horse is special. When that child is physically or mentally challenged, the results are magical. Horses and the Handicapped of South Florida has been providing equine-assisted therapy to hundreds of children, the majority of which could never afford this highly beneficial therapy on their own. It's a great cause, and here's a great way to help. Grab your boots and join us on Friday, March 1st at 7 p.m. at Ron Bergeron's Green Glades Ranch in Weston for the 3rd annual Wild West Night. This fun and exciting evening will feature great food and drink. Try an alligator Ron, live music with the Barron Sisters and the Andrews Morris Band. A live and silent auction featuring a Taylor Swift autographed guitar, live writing demonstrations, and much, much more. It's all to celebrate the legacy of Megan Morency. And all the proceeds go to Horses and the Handicapped. Wild Wild West Night, Friday, March 1st. For tickets, visit hhsfl.org. That's hhsfl.org.
You served your country. Now the Veterans Crisis Line is here to serve you. If you're a veteran in crisis or know a veteran who is, help is available. Call the Veterans Crisis Line today at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or chat online at www.veteranscrisisline.net. It's your call.
This is Health and Wealth Radio, AM 1470, WWNN Pompano Beach, and WKIS HD3, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
IRN USA Radio News, I'm Hope Duggar. Pope Benedict has celebrated his final public mass as pontiff, presiding over Ash Wednesday services at St. Peter's Basilica. The retiring 85-year-old pope was wheeled down the central aisle as a choir sang. In his homily, Benedict referred to his pending February 28th resignation and asked for prayers. Earlier in the day, the pope explained why he had broken with 600 years of tradition and decided to retire, saying he was, quote, doing so for the good of the church. As President Barack Obama pushes for the minimum wage increase that he called for in his State of the Union address, House Speaker John Boehner is explaining why he thinks it's a bad idea.
At a time when the American people are still asking the question, where are the jobs, why would we want to make it harder for small employers to hire people?
But Obama, speaking today in North Carolina, said giving workers a decent living is part of the key to reviving the economy. This is IRN USA Radio News.
Valentine's Day is this week, and ProFlowers is offering an amazing last-minute deal. 1 dozen gorgeous red roses plus a free glass vase, a free teddy bear, and a free box of chocolates for just $39.99. Go to ProFlowers.com, click on the radio microphone in the upper right corner, and enter the secret code ROSE14. But hurry, Valentine's Day is this Thursday, and this incredible deal expires Wednesday. Most roses will be sold out by Valentine's Day, so order now from ProFlowers to get huge savings and guaranteed Valentine's delivery. 1 dozen stunning red roses sent fresh from the fields, guaranteed to stay fresh and beautiful for at least 7 full days, plus a free vase, free teddy bear, and free chocolates, all for only $39.99. But hurry, because it could be nearly impossible to find roses on Valentine's Day. And this incredible last-minute deal expires Wednesday. The only way to get this amazing deal is to visit ProFlowers.com. Click on the microphone in the upper right corner and enter the secret code ROSE14. That's secret code ROSE14.
Afghan officials are welcoming the announcement by President Barack Obama last night that half of America's 66,000 troops in Afghanistan will be brought home within a year. But the news is being greeted with dismay by some Afghans who say America failed to keep its promise to give them a better and safer life. A troop drawdown had been widely expected, but for the first time, Obama said how many would leave. There are more details about the events that ended with the death of the man believed to be a wanted ex-Los Angeles police officer. The end of the manhunt was set in motion when he encountered a mother and daughter pair of housekeepers at a cabin in the the mountains east of Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Times reports that he tied them up and fled in a stolen car. The Times says one mate eventually broke free and called 911. About a half hour later, the suspect got into gunfights with authorities, one of whom was killed after barricading himself in a cabin.
LAPD has said that they're going to keep their protection details for about 50 officers and their families until it's 100% confirmed that the body belongs to Christopher Dorner.
For the latest news and analysis, log on to IRNUSAnews.com.
Monday. Texas is being overrun by some of the baddest cars to ever hit the road. But they'll have to go through these two first.
Fired up! Whoa!
Richard and Aaron are back for an all-new season of
Fast and Loud. Fast and Loud.
restoring the cars you know and love.
Shelby. 59 Apache short bed.
32 Ford. And having a good time doing it. Fast and Loud. New season premieres Monday at 9 on Discovery.
The Pentagon is creating a new medal that can be awarded to troops who have a direct impact on combat operations but have never set foot in a combat zone. Officials say that the new Distinguished Warfare Medal will be awarded to individuals for extraordinary achievement related to a military operation. It's a recognition of evolving warfare where troops fight wars from computers and video screens. You may have heard that the Transportation Security Administration is removing its space-age body screening machines from 200 airports across the country due to a looming deadline to do so put in place by Congress.
These X-ray-like scanners were both a healthcare and privacy concern, as the machines produce detailed images of a traveler's naked body. But that's not the end of these X-ray-type scanners. TSA spokesperson David Castelvetter said to the Federal Times that the $40 million worth of machinery could be moved elsewhere to provide security. Sources suggest that these see-all scanners could be coming to a federal building near you sometime soon. How fitting. I'm Sean Scott Ferguson, IRN USA News.
The House has overwhelmingly approved a bill to allow houses of worship damaged by Superstorm Sandy to receive federal disaster aid from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The measure, which passed by a 357 to 72 vote Wednesday, adds houses of worship to the government's list of private nonprofit organizations eligible for aid. Critics said the measure violates the constitutional separation of church and state. Sandy roared up the East Coast and pounded several states in late October, especially New York and New Jersey. With IRN USA Radio News.
Happy, healthy, and wealthy. Follow the American dream. On South Florida's AM 1470 WNN.
Here's some great news from Tom Trento, host of the daily WNN Trento Vision Show. Due to the unparalleled success of the Trento Vision Show, you now have an amazing opportunity to advertise on the Trento Vision Show. If you want more information about this excellent opportunity for your business, please contact Tom Trento at 561-319-5533, or you can email him, tom@trentovision.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and what an hour that was. That was pretty cool. Mordecai. How do you say it, Mordecai?
Mordecai.
Mordecai Kedar,
Yes.
with his fascinating, not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, 8-state solution. That was pretty wild. 8-state solution. But you know what? Divide and conquer, I guess. And he's not some guy that just fell off of an Israeli pumpkin truck. 25 years Israeli intelligence, 17 years teaching, and now one of the top sociologists, academicians in the Middle East, and it's a fascinating theory that we're going to look into that a little bit more. Hi, Tom Trento, here on Trento Vision. CJ's here. The invisible Mike is invisible. Where'd he go? And what is Mark's name again? I keep forgetting his name.
The disembodied voice.
Disembodied Mark. But we have a special guest we'll introduce in a moment in studio for the viewing pleasure of those of you watching on TrentoVision.tv. That's the video side of this extravaganza. And for those of you simply watching, simply listening, just using one half of the technology available to you in your automobiles on 1470 WNN 1470. 50,000 watts from North Miami to Orlando. We have friends in Orlando that pick this signal up. And we have alligators in the Everglades who listen religiously every single day. So 5 million people, 500,000 Jewish people here. Oh, I wonder why Students for Justice for Palestine picked Florida Atlantic University, Damon, to have their little soiree this past week. CJ? I wonder why.
I wonder why. Because they knew they could get away with it. That's why.
Yes,
because they got
did.
away with it last year, and so they thought they would do it again.
Well, we paid them a little visit yesterday, and we're going to try to get some of that audio or video up for you. And simply what we did was to take our team, and CJ and others were holding the fort down here. You watched it live, and we confronted we went to go put up cameras in yesterday, and we were confronted by the police, and there was a big brouhaha, and we came this close to getting arrested, Mark and myself, and we're smart enough not to get arrested, and we're smart enough to lay down a record of the violation of a series of rights that we'll pursue in the future. And we know the whole legal department and the whole staff and everybody at FAU is watching the show. We will be in touch, and we may be back again.
And we do have bail money.
Yeah, we do have bail money, and you can't play these games, folks. You simply cannot play these games and take the side of an organization committed to the destruction of Israel. They're not going to tell you that, but that is de facto what they do.
No, that's what they tell you in the lecture.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah. That is what they tell you in the lecture.
Yeah.
So anyway, Tom Trento here, Trento Vision. As you know, we do national security radio. In particular, we try to explain to you all the crazy stuff that's going on, whether in the homeland or abroad. We defend the Constitution. We defend the state of Israel's right to exist. Isn't that nice of us?
That's very big of you.
To defend their right to exist. And we try to defeat Islamic Jihad by going after the facilitators of the civilization jihad in America, the Muslim Brotherhood. All of you know that stuff. And with us right now is one of the experts in the universe on many things. Let's give a warm. Let's give a warm. Everybody paying attention here. Let's give a warm Trento Vision welcome to our good friend Frank Gaffney. Yay! All right. All right. Hi, Frank. How are you?
Hey, Tom. I'm great.
Yeah, you guys
great
have
to be here.
In our.
We gotta swap the mic back and
forth.
We'll
mostly keep it.
We are. But if you shake, it sounds like thunder. Okay.
Sorry.
We, as you can see, we are experimenting with some new stuff here and having fun with it. You just came in from where? Washington?
Palm Beach.
No, but before that. I mean, you're in Florida.
Atlanta.
Oh.
Before that.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C.
Okay, Washington, D.C. Tell us a little bit about who you are and a little closer to the mic.
Well, I am... how can I top a master of the universe, whatever you say. I'm an old national security guy from the Reagan administration. I acted as an assistant secretary of defense for international security policy. Back when we thought that the Soviet Union and communism was the non plus ultra of totalitarian ideologies, only to discover when it finally went away, thanks in no small measure to Ronald Reagan's strategy for destroying Soviet communism, that we would find it supplanted and actually made considerably worse by the latest version, not new, but the latest to manifest itself as a truly global threat, which is the one that you spend so helpfully so much time addressing, namely Islamism, political Islam, militant Islam, extremist Islam, call it what you will.
Islam.
I think of it as
Islam.
Sharia.
Sharia, yeah, of course, yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Before we get into all the tough stuff, February 5th was Ronald Reagan's 102nd birthday. 106th?
I think it was February 6th.
February 6th, 102nd. What kind of guy was he like, really? You worked for the man. What was he like?
Well, I can't say I was one of his intimates, but I saw enough of him and certainly worked in the proximity to him to know he was an extraordinary guy. I don't think there's any other way to say it. He, perhaps most extraordinarily, allowed himself to be characterized as an amiable dunce without taking offense at it, without trying to prove in some, aggressive and public way that it was so untrue. He had the inner self-confidence to know that it was untrue, and he actually, I think, found it useful to be underestimated. One of the ways you know he was nothing like an amiable dunce, of course, is the collections of his writings in his own hand of, among other things, speeches that he gave, for years, for GE and for other purposes, that bespeak a comprehension and a thoughtfulness about just about any issue you want to think about, from domestic policy matters to international affairs, that in some ways reminds me really of the founders of this country in terms of their grasp and their literacy and knowledge. And, when he came to office with that sort of grounding, what he set about to do in his first term was destroy the Soviet Union. And I had the privilege of playing a very small role in that, but the team that he put around him, starting with Bill Clark, his national security advisor, and Cap Weinberger, his Secretary of Defense, Gene Kirkpatrick at the UN, Bill Casey at the CIA, and others scattered around, my colleague Roger Robinson in the National Security Council. They laid out, and don't take my word for it, this is now all in the public domain, these national security decision documents lay out the strategy and how he went about comprehensively using every instrument of American power for the purpose, as he said, of ensuring that we win and they lose. And he did. And what's interesting about that, what makes this more than passing academic interest at least, is we need to be doing it now.
Well, yeah. I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but one of the first times we met early on, we went to a meeting somewhere, and there were some old Cold War warriors in the room. As maybe 15 or 20 of us. You had assembled these people, and the whole idea of that meeting was to examine some of the policies, procedures, tactics, techniques utilized for the Cold War defeat of the Soviets to fight this warm war of the jihad. That was a fascinating conversation then. But one of the interesting moments in my life, I was at the O.J. trial with Diane Sawyer on the day.
You do get around.
It was crazy. And when the decision came down, all hell broke loose, and I was actually covering it for a radio station. And after I finished interviewing all the people in front of the courthouse, I went up to the place where the police officers, I believe, were from, but it was where Ronald Reagan's library was. Mm-hmm. What's the name of that town again? I forget the name of that town. California, where his library is, and I went to the library. Loma Linda? No, I don't think it's Loma Linda.
No, that's Nixon. I'm drawing a blank on it.
Yeah, and I went to the Reagan Library. I wasn't there when the airplane was there and all that. This was in '96, I think it was. But I went up there and just walked around in there and looked at some of the stuff, and it's one of the, like, your bucket list kind of things. You got to go if you're a conservative. If you're a liberal, I don't know. Should we send some of the liberals there?
Sure.
Yeah, send them there. You may fall on your head and wake up and realize what's going on in the world. Anyway, Tom Trento here at 16 minutes past 4 o'clock, WNN 1470 on the radio side, on the video side, TrentoVision.tv. Are they watching, Mark, on Tea Party Community? Do we have it up there? Okay, we're live and in color on TeaPartyCommunity.com. How many members now? 110,000 last time I heard. That's amazing. There's 110,000 members, and this show is playing on their homepage every day, the whole show. We're also on Trento Vision. We're also on YouTube /The United West. Live. Who? What, live?
Live on YouTube.
We're live on YouTube. Yes, we're live on YouTube.
Streaming.
It's amazing. Yeah, we're Simi Valley. That's right, Simi Valley. There we go.
Simi.
There's the answer. It was a interesting place, Simi Valley, but and iHeartRadio, and it is 75 degrees inside our little studio, but outside we haven't done the weather and the traffic report in a while. Outside it is.
Wow, 81.
You got to speak into that.
81 degrees, huh?
Yeah.
Is it 81?
It is 81 degrees.
But what is it in Washington D.C.? That's what we want to know.
Well, check your phone, Tom.
Okay, I have the Washington D.C. weather here. Let's
Frank's
see.
going to have to leave, and it's going to be like, sorry, we didn't get a chance to talk to you because we had to
do
have
the weather and the traffic
news,
report.
the weather, the traffic report.
Mike,
How about
do the
Poughkeepsie?
traffic report.
Traffic report? I have no idea. It's 4:18. I got here at 3. Traffic was good at 3. Probably good now.
Yeah, probably good now.
That's our traffic report. That's our traffic report. And Washington, for some reason, it's not updating. I don't know what's going on. It's cold in Washington.
It's cold in Washington.
But it's very warm here. It was warm on the campus of Florida Atlantic University yesterday, confronting the jihadis there with Israeli Apartheid Week. Frank, they made a little change this year. It used to be called Israel Apartheid Week.
Right.
Now it's called Israeli Apartheid Week.
Right. Because you don't just want to delegitimize an entire state, you want to dehumanize an entire people.
What do you think, Frank Gaffney?
I think anybody who traffics in that kind of hate mongering is beneath contempt, Tom. And it should be described for what it is. It is anti-Semitism. It is creating, I think, a climate for violence against not just Israelis and the state of Israel, but Jews more generally. And the irony of it, of course, is that these are the same people who endlessly declare they are getting treated badly, that people are promoting hatred against them. I think, Tom, if I'm not mistaken, you yourself have been accused of that on occasion. And wrongly, of course. But I'm kind of stupefied that we allow this blatant hypocrisy, this double standard, this really scandalous wanting it both ways to be so persistent. And, I really commend you for calling them out on it, for going down and mixing it up, and hopefully helping empower an awful lot of other people to realize that this is an enemy inside our wire. They're not people who are just seeking the destruction of the Jewish state, as apparently they actually admit to on occasion.
Yes, they do.
But they're actually intent, under Sharia, in destroying our state, our way of life, because it's not compatible with theirs. And it's time to call them out on that, too.
888-565-1470. 888-565-1470 if you'd like to talk to Frank. We have the whole hour, so we got time to develop a few things and get into it. We're fighting these guys, and Frank, you and I and others in here have been on corners fighting the bad guys. But you are in Washington, D.C. You are just a couple of blocks from that big White House at 1600, your office.
My office is a couple of blocks away.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear. His office is at 1600.
Yeah, exactly. And talk about inside the wire. Man, you are inside the damn wire if you were ever inside. What is Washington like? And you wrote an article. You have your weekly article in the Times, Washington Times, coming out. Obama's Friends of Hamas. Come on. What does that mean?
Well, it's a reference to a story that Breitbart.com ran last week, as you're probably aware, in which they claimed that some Senate sources had, despite Chuck Hagel's determined effort to conceal as much as possible his various speeches given since he left the Senate, and those who may have paid for them, including overseas organizations or entities that may have paid for them. one of the groups, Breitbart said, that had in fact done just that was something describing itself as, quote, Friends of Hamas, unquote. And, Carl Levin, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, was satisfied that there was no problem with the disclosures. Evidently didn't see anything amiss in terms of their disposition, whatever funding might have been provided to the senator, whatever he might have said to them. He just rammed through the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday on a party line vote. The approval of this unbelievably deficient nomination to be Secretary of Defense, that of Chuck Hagel. And so to answer your question a little bit more broadly, Tom, Washington at the moment reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. There's a true unreality about it. You think you're hallucinating.
And you've been there a lot of
sometimes.
years.
I went to college there, and I never got away. I got what they call Potomac fever. And so I've been there for some 30, whatever it is, 2 years or something, 42 years.
52,
well, I'm a lot around.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the unreality of it is President Obama is engaged in conduct that amounts to dereliction of duty. Another way of thinking of it is national security fraud in this particular space. The perfect example, just a microcosm, but the perfect example of it was what we learned last week from Leon Panetta and Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which was he was missing in action after they told him that there was an attack on our
CJ,
personnel in Benghazi.
What did you say? Don't call me? How'd you phrase that for Obama?
I said while Benghazi was burning, don't call me.
Don't call me when Benghazi's burning. Yeah. Hey, Frank, we got a little problem
Literally, that's
here.
what he was told.
We have a little problem. If you can give the mic back to Frank. You're burning up our phones. We have a lot of people here. So what we're going to do, folks, 888-565-1470. We're going to take you through pretty quickly. But do we have IQ on the line?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we have IQ Al-Rasoli. Do you know IQ Al-Rasoli?
I have the pleasure.
Oh,
he is calling from overseas. He's a Iraqi who was raised in Iraq, and he has become an expert on Islam. He's written extensively. We've had him on the show. He's the guy who offers $100,000 bets to Muslims over debates and all of this. He's phenomenal. IQ, are you there? Let's get IQ on the line.
I'm here.
Hey, IQ, welcome back. You're with Tom and CJ, Mike, Mark, everybody else, and Frank Gaffney.
Howdy.
I'm so honored to have Frank because I've heard about him, I've read about him, but I've never had him on the same show as today. By the way, the last words from Mordechai. Mordechai and I, we communicate. We are very good friends, but by communication, we haven't met. We support each other.
Excellent.
And the last words that he gave to the American people, look at Europe today, and in 15 years, you will be the same.
Yes.
You know what I find more sickening is not the Muslims. I understand them. Their agenda is public. They want nothing to do with the Jews and Israel only. They want to Islamize the whole of humanity. This is the agenda. It has been for 1,400 years. What I find disturbing and sickening is the aiding and abetting by the media and academia. I mean, here you have a university you went to, 2 universities, and they wouldn't allow you in.
Yeah.
My question to you is, can you take these people to court? Can you take them to court?
I'll answer that.
A witness on your side.
Yeah, that's right. I'll answer that, and then if you have a question for Frank, he's our guest, and I'll just give you a short answer. We are seriously exploring that right now, and if there's any possibility, then we will move forward to do that, and we'll have more shows on that. But now that we have Frank right here, you got any questions for him, IQ?
Yes. He said about Obama, whatever he said, which was very correct. I always said that Obama was a Muslim. Whether he agreed with me is another story. Every item that he has done in the last 4 years and continues to do today has turned out in support of the Muslim Brotherhood. every single item. My question to Mr. Gaffney is, why does he think Obama has done what he has done?
Okay.
Well, IQ, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for being such a regular caller, apparently, to this show, and for your
guest. He's a big guest. Yeah.
Seriousness of purpose in this. Truthfully, I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out people's motivations, especially people like the President of the United States. I asked a question in the Washington Times in a column I did, probably the one that got by far the most attention in 24 years or so of writing a weekly column. If I said Bill Clinton could properly be described on the basis of special interest pandering and identity politics as America's first black president, then surely we have to call Barack Obama America's first Muslim president. And I went on to say, I'm not saying that Barack Obama is necessarily a Muslim any more than Bill Clinton is black. But the truth of the matter is, whatever his motivations are, IQ, Barack Obama is indeed, as you say, inexorably bringing ever closer into alignment the policies of the United States government and those of, say, the Muslim Brotherhood, the archetypal Islamist jihadist organization, as you know. And so I'd answer your question this way. Whatever his reason for doing it, whether it's because of his background, I think as a Muslim when he was a youngster, whether it is because he has an abiding sympathy for the kind of revolutionary agenda of the jihadists, whether it's simply the sentiment that a lot of leftists have, that an axis with the Islamists is good because they share a deep enmity towards this country. I don't know which of those it is, or maybe it's something else. What I do know is President Obama is engaged in a wrecking operation against the national security and specifically the national security capabilities of our country. And the effect of that, as you probably better than anybody can appreciate, as you're in the front lines of what I think of as the war for the free world, is to make the world a much more dangerous place. And not just for people like yourself in the front lines or our friends in Israel, but for us here in the United States as well.
Okay. IQ, I'm going to have to let you go now. We got a whole board of calls here, and
well, I'd just like to add one.
I would like IQ and Frank just to have a long conversation. IQ is an amazing guy, but we can't do that right now.
No, I just want to say, not only is Frank saying that he was the first Muslim president, so was during his speech Ramadan at the
Siraj Wahhaj.
Siraj Wahhaj also called.
He actually called him. He actually said,
Did he really?
"Oh
Yeah.
my
Oh,
God,
yeah. We got it on video.
You got that, Mike? Siraj Wahhaj in Chicago, Christmas time."
No. We don't have it queued up.
Oh,
We
you
do
don't queued
have-
up? Yeah, maybe you can find it.
Past Christmas?
All right, what?
This past Christmas?
Yeah, he's Siraj Wahhaj said, He goes, I don't agree with everything, even though he's the first Muslim president.
Right.
All right, IQ, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will
Nice
have you
to
back.
see you again.
We will have you back in the near future. Let's go to.
Let's go to Andy.
Okay, go ahead, bring him in. Andy,
Thank you, Blake.
you're with Tom.
Hi, guys.
Hey, who's this? Andy B?
Yeah, he asked me to call in.
Andy B. Yeah. That's who this is. You know our guest, Frank Gaffney?
I sure do.
Okay, what's
Hey,
up?
Andy.
Andy's been in
Hi,
that
Frank.
seat many times. What's your question, Andy B?
Oh, I actually didn't have a specific question. I just was calling in to encourage both of you to continue to do what you do.
Show the flag. Andy, thank you. Thanks for what you do as well, my friend.
And Andy Boston
All right.
has been in that seat many times and is unique guy, a physician who writes. Yeah, he writes I don't know 1,000-page treatises that are like encyclopedias. All right, Andy B. Thank you very much. Who's next there that we have?
Next we have Mary on the line. Nope. Judah.
Judah?
Judah on the
Judah,
line.
you're with Tom and CJ and Frank. How are you today?
Hi, Judah. You didn't call yesterday because Tom wasn't here? Is that it?
No, actually, I was at FAU, but I attended the Hillel Owls for Israel function that they had there. They had a guest speaker, former ambassador to Israel of Ethiopia. It was about the Ethiopian Jews.
Yeah.
Very
Let's do this, Judah, because we have a bunch of people
yes,
calling.
I'm going
and
to ask the question, Mr. Gaffney. An honor to speak to you, sir. I've
Thank you.
Periodically had the occasion to read your articles and so forth. My question is, there was a report on Fox News, and I read it sometime earlier before Fox News reported it, that we Americans are barely replacing ourselves population-wise. Now, demographically, we know that the Muslims they can have anywhere from 5 to 12 kids, and they can divorce their wives by just going to the wife saying, you're divorced, you're divorced, you're divorced, and they can marry another wife and have more children. So there's a demographic equation here. My question to you, sir, is should there be some sort of tax incentive or some sort of incentive for Americans who have more children?
Interesting.
I would just, amend your observation about the demographic problem with particularly the Islamists, and that is that in addition to being able to divorce your wife and get another one at the drop of a hat, you can, of course, have 3 additional wives to whichever one you happen to be married to at the moment. And that,
how would that
course,
work out for you?
that would be hell on wheels. I can't imagine. One is plenty. But I love her dearly.
Yes.
But one is plenty. But here's the point. I personally think that what you have to do if you want more children brought into the world is not just try to do, some kind of welfare program in effect that incentivizes people to procreate. You need to have a culture, a society that they want to bring their children up in. And I must tell you, Tom, you and I've talked about this many times, and CJ, this is anecdotal, I agree, I grant you, but it's nonetheless been my sustained experience around the country talking to folks. I find that a lot of people are worried about the issues that you address here, most especially. I'm not saying that it's, top of mind. If you did a poll, you'd find it is the very first thing that people are thinking about, and necessarily even in the back of their mind. But somewhere down here in their viscera, an awful lot of Americans are worried. And what is it they're worried about? I find that what they're worried about is the kind of country they're going to bequeath to their children. And I think that's causing a lot of them to say, I'm sufficiently unsure about this, and I'm not sure I want to have them. And I think that's contributing. It's not the only factor, and there are a lot of other issues. As societies become more prosperous and indolent, they typically tend to be, more self-preoccupied, and they don't want the responsibilities, the burdens of more children. You think we've got it bad. Look at Europe, and even more so Russia. China, interestingly enough, because of its one-child policy, is way below replacement rate, and that doesn't sound like a problem when you got a billion people. But the truth of the matter is, they've got a huge problem developing because their population is aging, and this is particularly relevant to a national security-minded program like yours, Tom. You've got a whole bunch of men. I've had numbers anywhere from 25 to 50 million Chinese young men for whom there are no women.
That's a problem.
And that is a problem for the rest of the world, most especially the region. Yeah.
Going to be a war. Hey, Judah, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. This is Tom Trento at 35 minutes past the hour. And the hour on the east coast of the United States is 4. The hour, our friends over on the west coast, it's 1. So it's 1:35 for you guys. And I know many of you are watching and listening. And those our friends in Europe, it's a little later in the evening, 10, 11 o'clock, 11:30. But you're here with Tom and CJ, Mike, Mark, DR, and our special guest, Frank Gaffney. If you'd like to join in the conversation, 888-565-1470. Right now, we're kind of going all over the place so that you have an opportunity to speak with Frank. IQ Al Rasoli, called from Europe or wherever he lives, somewhere. And you can call from wherever you want. We thank you indeed for doing that. We deal with national security issues. And as Mark likes to say, we make jihad fun as we deal with this and laugh at ourselves a little bit and the idiocy of where we're at in this world. Yes, CJ.
Question? Yeah. My question for you two, because you've been studying this for years and you did the Sharia book together. What we see in this country with first, second, third generation Muslims becoming educated to be really what we call radicalized Muslims in the United States. Based on our conversation with Mordechai Kadar in the last hour, do you think that's because they have left their countries where they had their tribal identities and they are therefore more susceptible to becoming radicalized when in fact they recreate that in the host countries that they're going to? What do you think about that?
Well, it's a complicated question, and I don't know that there's a short or simple answer. Let me tell you a quick story that really brought home to me what's going on. 5 or 6 years ago, I think it is now, we made a film with government support.
Yeah, I remember.
Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a competition. We won the competition, among others, and created a film called Islam versus Islamists to look at this question, put sort of baldly, if, as I believe, there are lots of moderate Muslims in this country, how come we never hear from them? Where are they? And so we did this film to look at Zuhdi Jasser and a number of others who've been courageous and standing up, and the bottom line was they're scared to death of the Islamists, who are, in some cases, threatening them with ostracization, or they're boycotting their businesses, or they're threatening them in other ways. Well, the folks at the Public Broadcasting Service didn't want our film to be aired on their service, so they spiked it, and we raised hell about it, but they spiked it. And instead they gave a slug of money, no competition involved, on a sweetheart deal basis to a fellow by the name of Robin McNeil of the old McNeil-Lehrer fame.
Sure.
And Robin McNeil made another film, which they aired in place of ours, which was basically one long, wet kiss to the Islamists, who the PBS folks thought we were being too hard on. And the final story, as I recall, of this film was of two young women, Muslim girls here in this country, second, third generation, whatever they are, and the terrible hardship they were suffering because their parents, who I think it's fair to say had come here to get away from Sharia in their own country and had fully assimilated. They were professionals. They were very much, the American dream. Were opposing these girls starting to wear the hijab, which they'd been encouraged to do in school, presumably by the Muslim Students Association and the people around it. And the closing kicker of this segment of the film by Robin McNeil was that this fully assimilated, professional, obviously American success story, the mother, felt obliged to start wearing the hijab herself. So this is kind of what's happening, I think. We've got that kind of syndrome going on, CJ, and I don't know whether it's that you have, in cases like that, pressure being brought to bear by Muslim Brotherhood front organizations like the Muslim Students Association that are inducing kids to go this way, and they don't really know much about the horrors of Sharia that their parents did, or whether in some cases you've got refugee populations that are simply being transplanted here and they are all about Sharia, or whether it's some other aspect. But what we do know is this: if we continue to, as a government and as a society, as clerics and academics and lawyers,
doctors,
and
physicians,
politicians to embrace the Muslim Brotherhood, one thing is clear: you're going to see more and more of this kind of radicalization within the Muslim American community, and fewer Muslims willing to stand up against it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have said many times on this show that a Muslim is a human being, and as other human beings, and as Christians and Jews, we have a Christian, a Jew, a Unitarian, Christian mystic, another Jew here. We got all kinds of stuff at Trento Vision. We have said that, I don't hate, Tom Trento does not hate Muslims. We had John Guandolo, our colleague, Skyped in Friday. We did a show where John came up with an investigative piece and said he has information through some friends that John Brennan converted to Islam. Well, the Blaze yesterday did a weird report on it and referred to me as infamous or famously Muslim hater Tom Trento. I don't hate Muslims, and I have many Muslim friends that know that. What I hate is an ideology that seeks to destroy what America is about and what human nature is about. And we've all struggled with a lexicon, but I am winding up in my pilgrimage to the travel through the various adjectives and qualifiers and modifiers to go right to Islam. And why I'm doing that is because Yosef Qaradari and Kutub and Hassan al-Banna, they all call it Islam. They don't modify what the thing is. So the question is, could there be a Muslim who is a good American, or what we would call a moderate, who can consistently follow Islam? No, not according to Anwar al-Awlaki or Kutub or any of the doctrinal teachers. So that's a whole. We've done a lot of work on this. We don't hate Muslims, but if you assume an ideology, and the most simple thing that we've come up with, you've come up with and put the book together, all of us, Sharia, the total comprehensive ideological, totalitarian, jurisprudential, theocratic system of law, and we do a little bit in here, my Sharia. That the Sharia is the threat doctrine to America. So if a Muslim rejects the Sharia, which you necessarily have to if you want to be a good American, you're our friend. If you accept the Sharia as articulated in Reliance, then you become de facto an enemy of me and an enemy of the United States of America. It's pretty simple. No problem. Well, here's Reliance. I mean, we've all seen this, and we're not going to do our little bits right now. We got a lot to do. We have more people on the phone, and I want to fight. We want to get into Brennan. We want to get into Hillary. We want to get to Benghazi. So you may have to sleep here tonight. Okay? What do you got next?
Problem. We have Jack next on the line.
Okay, let's bring Jack on. Jack, you're with
Jack.
Tom and everybody, and Frank Gaffney, our special guest.
Yes.
Hey there, thank you, Tom. And hey, Frank, this is Jack Ellison up in Massachusetts. I met you back in the summer.
Yeah, hi, Jack.
Hey, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Listen, I'm so glad to see you on here, and I really wanted to ask one particular point, and touches on what Tom just mentioned, because I saw John Guandolo on Tom's show, and I know what he's saying about Brennan, and I find it there's no other conclusion to reach. I'd like your thought on what, if anything, you think we may be able to do to convince the relevant parties voting to not get Brennan his approval for his confirmation for CIA.
Well, I can address that question without getting into an issue that I honestly don't have enough information to judge whether he's a Muslim or not. John is concluded on the basis of sources that he deals with that he is. I haven't seen that evidence myself. But quite apart from that, and really this is, as I said, what matters to me, not somebody's personal motivation, but what they're doing. John Brennan is the architect in the Obama administration of the practice that is most generously described by our friend Andy McCarthy as willful blindness about this enemy threat doctrine of Sharia and its practice in our country. He has enabled it to translate into the penetration of our government. You can look at his letter to the groups that insisted that our files of the FBI and other law enforcement, homeland security, military, and intelligence agencies be purged of documents that these Islamists find offensive, which is to say, true and evident, evidence of their agenda. We've seen him complicit in the blackballing of trainers who, like our friend Steve Coughlin and colleague, have spoken the truth and helped train our folks to contend with the real nature of this enemy and its threat doctrine. We've seen him lying about the nature of jihad, calling it only about personal struggle and purifying the community, having nothing to do with holy war. Well, again, Tom's handy, document here makes absolutely clear jihad is about holy war. And when you have a guy as the assistant to the president for Homeland Security and counterterrorism, who is complicit in the civilization jihad against us, let alone the guy who is next to go and determine what kind of intelligence can be collected about the threats to this country. Well, it's a formula for our destruction. I think there's no other way to put it, and I believe that should be plenty of basis for rejecting his nomination to be the next CIA director.
Amen, and we'll find out tomorrow. Jack, thank you very much, and you keep up the good work up there.
Thank you for calling, Jack. Up next, we have Don on the line.
Okay, Don, how are you with Tom and CJ and Frank Gaffney? Frank, by the way, is the founder.
Everybody, Tom, CJ, Mark, Mike, and Frank. I wanted to ask you about, I know you guys want to get the conversation steered around to Benghazi.
Where are you calling from? Where are you calling from, Don?
I'm calling from Southern California.
It's a dangerous place there.
No, the guy, Dorner's dead. Dorner's dead. The guy they were looking for is dead.
No, I'm talking. I was talking.
Oh,
about
jihad-wise, yes,
yes.
UCI, University of California, Irvine.
It reappeared as an unburned piece of evidence that it was Dorner that was burned up in the fire. So how his wallet miraculously appeared in the cabin is still a mystery.
Interesting. Go ahead.
And unburned. But at any rate, this Benghazi thing, of course, continues to percolate. Yesterday we had Lou being asked by the Senate who actually briefed the president, and he's unwilling to say who actually briefed the president. But I'm wondering, what is the angle on this issue? What's the Achilles tendon that is out there that's going to finally enable us to get to the bottom of this and get the investigation that we need done and, get some accountability on the Benghazi issue?
It's a great question. I think you mean the Achilles heel rather than the Achilles tendon. I don't know that we'll get where we need to go if it's just the tendon. Let me just tell you what my theory of the case is, and if we pursue it aggressively, I think we might get to that heel, if you will. We now have two former special operators in a new book called Benghazi, The Definitive Report, which just came out as an ebook on Tuesday, talking about the fact that what was going on in Benghazi was a covert operation involving policing up of arms, of which there were many, of course, in Libya. Once we helped overthrow Muammar Gaddafi and his caches, which were everywhere, were liberated, and vectoring them to, as they put it, I think, start a war someplace else. Now, I haven't read the book, to be honest with you. I'm just going from press reports about it. But my estimation is that what that covert operation involved, and we're told in this book that John Brennan was, again, the architect of this affair and the guy who was stage managing it, apparently with kind of the same level of oversight and approval from the president that Leon Panetta and Marty Dempsey had as this attack was going on, which is to say the president kind of just let him run it. But my guess is that what happened was that they were arming the war that they were not so much starting, but were trying to facilitate by arming, was the one in Syria. They were sending weapons that had been scarfed up in Libya, in some cases by the very people that Chris Stevens had helped bring to power there, namely jihadists, who had in some cases actually already themselves gone on to Syria to fight the jihad there. And he was arranging, I believe, for arms to go via Turkey to the border with Syria and on into the hands of the Syrian rebels, of whom we now know more and more and more are, in fact, al-Qaeda or other violent jihadists. This was kind of a problem. The possibility that that somebody had tumbled on to at least one shipment of these arms on a Libyan freighter that had come to a Turkish port near the Syrian border, and they were in a position, presumably, to compromise the whole mission at a moment when President Obama was running for re-election.
Right, that time.
And I think this was a huge problem that prompted, despite his certain knowledge of the dangers involved, Chris Stevens, the guy who was managing that program, to go to Benghazi on September 11th and meet with the Turkish consul general as his last official act on that evening. Now, maybe there's pieces of this that I'm missing, or maybe what I've said has another explanation, but I'll just tell you, it seems to me, when you combine what they now are describing, you remember it used to be called a consulate? Now it's a special mission compound. There is no other special mission compound in the entire State Department, facilities, inventory. And it was in proximity to this annex that the agency, the CIA, was running. This is what it computes to me. And I think as a result, what we need to do, what the Senate needs to do, what the House needs to do, what maybe a special select committee, as Congressman Frank Wolf has suggested, needs to do, maybe a special prosecutor needs to do, though that'll take forever, is to find out what was the covert operation being run out of Benghazi, and did it involve the arming of al-Qaeda in Syria, and was the evidence of that coming out a sufficient problem for the president that not only did he wash his hands of the whole thing and walk away from it, as did apparently Hillary Clinton, but that in the aftermath of it, he propounded, as did everybody in his administration for a time, the false narrative that this had, don't look over there, folks, look over here. This is about a video. We've got to prosecute the guy who exercised his First Amendment rights under the United States Constitution in a way that gave offense to these Islamists and had to be prosecuted and incarcerated for a year for what amounts to doing so.
Well, you mentioned?
Hey, Don, I'm gonna have to. Don, hey, Don, we're at the end of the hour. I gotta let you go, Don.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to the callers who are on hold. We
have the
get
book.
To everybody.
I have the book Benghazi, the definitive report in front of me. It's an open secret in Washington that John Brennan is a world-class windbag. That's one statement, and it goes on to say the problem in Benghazi occurred when a bunch of 18th century tribesmen in sandals with rusty AK-47s are permitted to wag the dog. That is, when their actions move a multi-billion-dollar counterterrorism apparatus across the world and its operations begin to get out of control, all being run with a non-elected political appointee running the show who wants to be the head of the CIA. Yeah. That's the conclusion of the book. Hey, Frank Gaffney, thank you very much for being here. This hour went pretty quickly, I mean,
they always
you can stay a little longer if you want.
We'll buy you dinner.
Stay around a
if
little
you
bit.
Want to hang out, we have Diana West calling in next, so we'll have a blast. Okay, let's break out the
little party at the BBC.
Adult beverages. But we got to go right now because Blake says it's time to go. We'll be back.
Time to take a break.
At the top of the hour here.
Thanks for tuning into Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Tom Trento can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. And tune in again weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Download the iRadio Now app for iPhone or Android phones. Free at your iPhone App Store or Android App Market. Take AM 1470 WWNN with you wherever you go.
AM 1470 with even more information you can use. Are you suffering with chronic pain? Tune in for No Bones About It with Dr. Alvin Stein. You'll learn non-invasive techniques that can help you get rid of your pain without the use of harmful drugs or surgery. That's No Bones About It with Dr. Alvin Stein. Tuesday mornings at 11, right here on AM 1470 WNN, South Florida's Health and Wealth Network.
Mile Marker International encourages parents to add to your child's education with proper information about drug use, drug abuse, and addiction. Informed and understanding parental involvement does make a difference. Remember, if you're not talking to your kids about drugs and alcohol, who is? That's from Mile Marker International Incorporated. Community integrity is what keeps our area strong. They're proud to be working to keep this spirit going. That's Mile Marker International Incorporated, 2121 Blount Road, Pompano Beach. For more information, visit milemarker.com.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sterile bandage, a sandbag, a doctor, a sheet of plywood, a shovel, a bulldozer, a stethoscope, a cement mixer, an oxygen tank, a bed, a house. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact. It can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most: food, medical services, shelter, and other essential supplies. It can help improve the immediate distress and over time becomes a crucial tool in rebuilding schools, hospitals, and homes and getting local businesses back on their feet. A monetary donation is an easy and effective way you can help.
Want to help those affected by Hurricane Sandy? To donate, visit sandy.adcouncil.org. That's sandy.adcouncil.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is Health and Wealth Radio, AM 1470, WWNN Pompano Beach, and WKIS HD3, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
IRN USA Radio News. I'm Hope Duggar. Secretary of State John Kerry says the world has to show its resolve in the wake of North Korea's latest nuclear test.
The international community now needs to come together with a swift and clear, strong, credible response.
Speaking at a news conference, Kerry says a strong response to North Korea's nuclear test would also send a message to Iran.
Just as it is impermissible for North Korea to pursue this kind of reckless effort, so we have said it is impermissible with respect to Iran.
Carnival Cruise Line says it's canceling another 12 voyages for the disabled ship that is being towed to Alabama after an engine room fire that left it powerless at sea. Those cancellations are in addition to 2 other cruises that were called off shortly after Sunday's fire. There are more than 4,000 people aboard the ship, which is expected to be towed into Mobile on Thursday. Passengers have reported dismal conditions. Carnival has disputed those claims. This is IRN USA Radio News.
If your thinning hair is as recent as 8 to 12 years, a high percentage of your follicles may still be alive. Kevis's exclusive patented European Breakthrough Program protects and directly supports the health and strength of these follicles. Most products target the symptoms of thinning hair, but don't actually target the cause of the loss, which is a buildup of DHT in the follicle. Remove the DHT, keep it off, the follicle heals. Simple. This is what Kevis does and why it is a healing agent versus a stimulant. Imagine over 50% back naturally. We're so confident you'll love Kevis. Call now and we'll give you a free 1-month supply. No commitments or strings attached. Call 800-245-HAIR. That's 800-245-HAIR. 800-245-HAIR, or go to iwantmyhair.com. That's iwantmyhair.com.
In his State of the Union address, President Barack Obama said that nothing he was proposing in his speech would, quote, increase our deficit a single dime.
Obama then proceeded to propose at least 29 costly new government programs. According to the White House Office of Management and Budget, in Obama's first fiscal year as president in 2008, federal spending was $2.9 trillion. The White House Office of Management and Budget estimates that federal spending for the fiscal year of 2013 will be $3.8 trillion, a 27.5% increase. With IRN USA Radio News, I'm Precious Watson.
Americans barely spent more last month at retail businesses and restaurants after higher tax cuts in their paychecks. The small increase suggests consumer spending may be weak in the January to March quarter. The Commerce Department says retail sales ticked up 0.1% last month after a 0.5% rise in December. January's increase was the smallest in 3 months. For the latest news and analysis, log on to IRNUSAnews.com.
Monday. Texas is being overrun by some of the baddest cars to ever hit the road. But they'll have to go through these two first.
Fired up! Whoa!
Richard and Aaron are back for an all-new season of
Fast and Loud. Fast and Loud.
Restoring the cars you know and love.
Shelby. 59 Apache Short Bed.
32 Ford. And having a good time doing it. Fast and Loud. New season premieres Monday at 9 on Discovery.
A new report calls for a national drug tracking system to fight the growing problem of fake drugs. The Institute of Medicine says phony or substandard drugs are an increasing international threat and one that is affecting the U.S. as well. Just last week, the Food and Drug Administration warned doctors for the third time in about a year that it discovered a counterfeit batch of the cancer drug Avastin, one that lacks the real tumor-killing ingredient. Wednesday's report says mandatory drug tracking would offer the same kind of reliability for medications that the U.S. court system's chain of custody requirements do for evidence used in trials. A new study concludes that only a few states are fully complying with certain requirements of the No Child Left Behind law. Carlotta Bradley reports from Washington.
A study finds many states granted waivers from the No Child Left Behind law are relaxing or ignoring federal regulations designed to hold schools accountable for the number of students who graduate from high school on time. The Alliance for Excellent Education says relaxing or ignoring the rules potentially allows low-performing students to fall through the cracks once again, and only a few states are in full compliance. The Education Department declined comment. According to its most recent data, graduation rates nationwide have improved to 78% of students finishing high school on time.
The family of a U.S. agent killed in a 2011 ambush on a Mexican highway and another agent who survived the attack have both sued the government and nearly 24 other defendants. Those named in the lawsuit include the agent's supervisors and the company that armored their SUV. With IRN USA Radio News.
What you want to know. What you need to know. This is South Florida's Health and Wealth Radio, AM 1470, WNN.
Here's some great news from Tom Trento, host of the daily WNN Trento Vision Show. Due to the unparalleled success of the Trento Vision Show, you now have an amazing opportunity to advertise on the Trento Vision Show. If you want more information about this excellent opportunity for your business, please contact Tom Trento at 561-319-5533, or you can email him, tom@trentovision.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Okay, as long as there's no salty peanuts. Any salty peanuts on my face?
No, you are sweet and salty almond free.
Okay, good. Because they stick to the side of your face here sometimes. Oh, this thing is in the way. Oh, I'm at that camera now. Okay, Mark's got so many cameras in this place. I will look at that camera. Frank, you're in that camera, and that's the wide shot. Hi, everybody. By popular demand, Mr. Gaffney is back with us. Give him a hand for... He got the traffic report from Mike, and he figures out he can get to his
Mike
next
said
place.
traffic was clear, so he's good to go.
He's cool.
Yeah.
Before we get to you, Frank, I did get a letter from Lisa Metcalf, your friend, Mark.
Oh, Lisa.
Lisa, who's the
Well,
media...
she finally sent us back a message after 10 attempts to call her.
Yeah, the media director over at Florida Atlantic University. Hi, Tom. Thanks for your interest in attending events hosted by the FAU chapter of the Students for Justice in Palestine. And they just, I mean, this thing was so lawyered up, this letter. They cut 3 paragraphs out and basically said, if you want to film there, you have to get permission from the school to tape. Now,
I think you have to answer the telephone.
I have a question with that.
To get permission,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do, Lisa, when you wouldn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
You know, that's rough. So.
And your office is closed.
So notwithstanding your wonderful gesture here by your lawyers or whomever, it ain't enough. It's not working.
And it won't help you, and you're still in trouble.
We'll be in touch, okay? So try another letter.
Yeah.
But happy Valentine's Day anyway.
Yes.
Tomorrow. Frank, CJ has a question for you. We know you got to run, and
yes, I do.
But this is important.
If you don't mind, it seems to me that you are pretty much out there on a limb, almost on your own, as the expert on the threats that this country is facing right now. You're thrown to the wolves by everybody. Our elected officials, our bureaucrats, our academics don't get it, don't want to know about it, and in fact lie to us about it and tell us that things are great and not a problem. What can we do? Our viewers, our listeners, our activists, what's the most important thing that we can do to help turn this country around? Because the people at the top and in the middle, they're never going to do it.
Well, I think you mean this in the best sense of the word, that I'm out on a limb by myself. I'm not sure what the best sense of that is, but...
We're just shaking the branch there.
I actually would disagree with you. I don't think I'm alone. I think we've
I'm with you, Frank.
You
it's
are with
everybody
me.
in this room.
CJ's with me, Mark.
Yes.
We've got a lot of folks.
We're all on that limb.
We've got a lot of folks who actually have gone to school on the problem, most especially of this totalitarian ideology, Sharia, but who, are clued up about the other threats that you may or may not be giving as much attention to, but that are also out there: China, and Russia, and Iran, and Venezuela, and so on.
Obama.
Mm-hmm. What we have not done as good a job of as we need to, and this really goes to your heart of your question, is bringing this information that cohort of knowledgeable folks have developed to the attention of the American people. And, I have to tell you that one of the most painful things of my adult life was watching the opportunity to do that in the last election squandered. It was a perfect chance to make the American people aware of what President Obama has done for the past 4 years. And to varying degrees, President Bush before him, frankly, that has made this world more dangerous. And that now that he's been reelected and he has more flexibility, and he has certainly convinced himself, and to some extent the press has certainly bought into this idea that he has a mandate to do more of the same. Katie, bar the door. Yeah. So what do we need to do about it? I've got a couple of quick ideas. The first is people have got to get smart about the realities. And this show is a real public service, Tom. We do a little program up in neck of the woods, Secure Freedom Radio. We're trying to help as well. We've got people who are doing great books and videos. We've done an online course called Muslim Brotherhood in America, The Enemy Within, at MuslimBrotherhoodInAmerica.com.
It's on our website.
It's on the United West website. Got to go to that. Yep.
Sharia, the Threat to America.
Got to read that.
And so much else. If you are going to play a role in this fight, you do have to know what you're talking about, because you're going up against people who are very good, especially at silencing you, suppressing you, and keeping your voice from being heard by others by trying to marginalize you.
Or call you a hate monger.
Among other things. Yeah. So get smart.
Okay. Get smart, everybody.
Then think about who in your own circle of influence or that of an organization that you might join, or people that you know who have more influential circles of influence. Maybe they're talk radio show hosts that you can have access to by just calling up, like the famous Tom Trento. Maybe they're editors at your local paper. Maybe they're members of Congress, and I always recommend that people go to their district offices. Don't fool with Washington. Go to the district office, because a lot of time your legislator is looking to that district office to figure out, no kidding, what are the people who are going to vote for him or her or not vote for him or her thinking. Take advantage of those vehicles to amplify your own voice. And then I think, not least, get involved with organizations. United West is one of my favorite ones. Act for America is another. Eagle Forum.
You guys,
Stand with us.
Sure, yeah.
Stop the Islamization of America. The Center for Security Policy. All of these are places that you can help in any number of ways. You can help by lending your time. Some of that can be done online. You don't have to physically be in their space. Some of them are going down and hanging with Tom on some street corner or some university campus, if you're gutsy enough to do that. Or you can just send money. Because in the war of ideas, which is at a sort of central level what we're in here, against a totalitarian ideology, ammo is money. And we need it, those of us in the fight. And if you don't feel personally you want to take the slings and arrows or the name calling or anything else that's associated with being in the front lines, you can help by supporting the counter jihad, by I guess what they would call zakat in the jihad business.
How do they get in touch?
Alms for the good.
How do they get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
SecureFreedom.org is a terrific website. We've just completely redone it, and it's got a lot of information on all of these issues and a place that you can donate. And we'd really be grateful if you'd think of that, and not least send money to Trento Vision.
But we're getting by right now, but we could always use help. But yeah, you're the guest here. Before you leave, I know you got to go.
Disappearing guest.
Well, we want to just bring our caller in, our guest actually, friend of yours.
I'll pass the baton to her.
Yeah, you're gonna pass the baton. Diane, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, I've never talked to her.
Oh, you haven't? That's what you will in a second.
Hello and goodbye, Diana. I haven't talked with you on the radio in, I don't know, at least a couple of hours. But thank you for taking the baton, and I know you'll carry it on magnificently. She is truly one of the great heroes of the war for the free world. And I actually, Tom, had presented to me this weekend a galley proof of American betrayal.
Oh, I'm waiting for
so
that.
I know it's real, and it's exciting. So maybe she'll talk about it if you really press her on the question.
I think we will.
Goodbye, Diana. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right.
Goodbye, Frank.
Frank, goodbye. And hello, Diana West, our next guest. And Diana is actually one of the authors of Sharia, the Threat to America, with Frank, myself, and a whole bunch of other people that we've spoken about quite a bit. But she's an accomplished author. I see you, Frank. Take it easy. An accomplished author in and of herself. Diana, we're emptying out. We're emptying Frank out. I don't know if you're following this on the internet. Are you watching this thing, Diana?
In real time. No, I'm not. I'm just listening in.
Okay. If you go to TrentoVision.tv
or YouTube.
And you mute it, you can actually watch what the insanity. But hello, how are you today?
Well, I'm thrilled to be on. This is my first visit to Trento Vision.
Oh my word!
Yes.
That's right. I told you I never talked to her.
Oh well, it will not be your last. That's for sure. And I mentioned to the guys earlier that when we were all getting copies of everyone's chapter of Sharia, the Threat to America, I was on an airplane and flying somewhere, and I had a bunch of papers in my hand, and I read your chapter, and Diana is the author of Death of the Grown Up, which is an amazing book. Yeah, And I was reading your chapter, and it literally brought tears to my eyes as I was reading this. And that doesn't happen a lot in my family, and I mean in my life. So you're an amazing writer. You have also become an expert on this Benghazi insanity. But let me introduce you first to CJ. CJ is
Hi. We actually met on the phone a few years ago when I was calling to schedule you for interviews during Geert Wilder's visit to Boca Raton.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
you were so nice
super.
and helpful.
Excellent.
okay, and Mark is in here, and Mike, and what we're going to do, I
I'd
think.
like to say hello to Diana.
Well, go ahead,
too.
Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Diana. It's an
Hi, Mark.
honor and pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you over the years. I've never met you. I've always wanted to. One of the few Team B2 people I have not met.
Oh, well, it's lovely to meet you. I hope next time I get my Skype working. That's my promise to you guys. I'll get
Okay.
Skype running.
All right, thank you.
What do you make it to Florida at all?
Well, I have a trip coming up at the end of April, so
Okay, we will have
Oh,
you.
that'd be great.
We'll have you in the
Getting closer.
studio.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to do, Diana has a column that comes out every week on Thursdays. I think what we'll do,
That's a great idea. I know
yeah,
exactly
bring her on each week, and
Yeah.
for a little 15-minute segment or whatever, and launch the column, and
sounds great.
get it out.
Yeah.
We launch telling everybody that the next head of the CIA is a Muslim. We might as well launch your column. Why not?
Well, Diana does her own launches. I
she
remember
does.
reading like years back. I think she was the first conservative columnist to advocate for American troop removal from Afghanistan. Get us out of Afghanistan.
Yes, I think I
You were
was.
like the first one who advocated for that.
Yes, I think I was. I took heart from an interview I did with General Paul Vallely, in which we were talking about Afghanistan, because I don't have military experience. I was a little reticent to go there, but I was interviewing him about what was going on at that point. And I remember hearing the words in this interview from him. He said, I said, "What should we do, General?" And he said, "Let it go."
Let it go. You can't win that
Let
war.
it go.
Yeah.
Exactly. There is nothing to win there, and so I
Right.
developed from that sort of notion, this ongoing campaign, which has not been effective enough and fast enough to get us out of there, because there is nothing to win there, and there is much to lose at home. So.
Well, yeah, and General Valley is a regular guest here, and one of the guys that's going to lead us into the new America. It looks like he's a very serious patriot for sure.
Yes.
But Diana, you, as I said, you wrote the death of a grown-up. About.
Yes.
About
Defines
Americans,
our culture.
Yeah, being limited in their development, arrested in their development, and how it impacts Western civilization. You got a column coming out. American Betrayal is coming out. So we have some time. Let's kind of work through this, and then we want to center in on Benghazi too, because you've done amazing work on that. How did you get started as a writer? How did all of that happen?
Well, I guess there was the life before 9/11, because I've been a writer since I left college and in college, and I was very interested in cultural issues. I had less interest in foreign policy at that point, but I became a reporter. I went to the Washington Times fairly early on and had various jobs there, from covering a presidential campaign, being a movie critic, doing feature writing. Later I did editorial writing, so I was able to do quite a number of different jobs there that honed the craft and got me going, and later did more magazine journalism, later had children, realized that commentary was really the way to go if you had napping babies and didn't have to make phone calls, and developed from there. And actually it was after that point I did become an editorial writer, and I inaugurated my column writing under my own byline, I guess, about 1999. So since then, I've been writing the column weekly, which is a lot of columns. I'm actually trying to pull together a book of columns. And it was after 9/11 that I returned to this idea that became the book, The Death of the Grown-Up, when it became apparent to me that this cultural decline that I've been chronicling for some time actually had a terrible connection to what I saw coming out of expanding Islam, and that was this phenomenon of dhimmitud, of this notion of the non-Muslim living under Islamic law, whether it was written in the country's code or just an influence. And I realized that this very immature, pampered person that we had become through our own development was a terribly perfect candidate for dhimmitud. And that's when the book really clicked for me, and that's what I did. I guess that came out in 2007.
Amazing book. Everybody should read this.
22 minutes after 5 o'clock, you're on Trento Vision with Tom Trento, and our crew here, we're speaking with Diana West, the intrepid author who has written Death, about the death of the grown-up, obviously, but the preparation of a takeover by Islamic jihad ideology, simply because of the way we become little kids, and
also with the going back to Raphael Patay's book, The Arab Mind. I'm sure you're familiar. Are you familiar with that, Diana?
Mm-hmm.
Raphael Patay's book, The Arab Mind. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities once you look at the upbringing of that, talking about the spoiled 2-year-old in the Arab culture, and that's kind of what we've become in essence too. It is the essence of your book. We have become almost a spoiled 2-year-old, where all we have to do is kick, scream, and yell loud enough, and we'll get our way. So whichever group or entity makes the most noise is the one that's going to get the candy. And is that what we become?
Yeah. Well, I think it's true, and you might say that such a condition requires a strong central control, requires external controls. I mean, I think one of the big lights-on moment for me in the whole cultural understanding of what was going on came a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago, probably around 2002 or 3, when, if you remember, there was a lot of talk about bringing women into the Augusta Golf Club.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you remember that? And
I do.
The protest of the American women at this time was to don green, Augusta green burqas.
Right.
And I remember being just appalled at this. I don't remember what I wrote about it, but I wrote something about it, and I got this fascinating letter from a woman who had been married to a Muslim man. And she gave me the best understanding of the burqa and so on, and this need for external control, in that explaining how the burqa was to cover up the woman, because the sense was that an uncovered woman was fair game, and there was no internal controls in the Muslim male that would permit him to, see uncovered women and not fall upon them, basically. And it was kind of a new understanding for me of that at that time. And that is kind of what the spoiled, the instant gratification culture, the immature culture ends up requiring in order to just stay in line, our external controls.
Right.
And in the Islamic world, that is what they have. I'm sorry.
And the honor perspective is this. This is where all the male honor is derived from, is the control and subjugation of the woman's sexuality. And in essence, he gets his honor from controlling her sexuality. So therefore, he must put her in a burqa when she goes out, because he can't be dishonored.
Right. I wish we could come up with another word besides honor, because when you look, I just watched this very old, wonderful movie called Beau Ideal from the early 1930s, and it was all about a different kind of code of honor, even though it was about the French Foreign Legion operating in a very Islamic North Africa. And the Western notion of honor is so different from the Arabic and Islamic notion of honor. But I know exactly what you mean. That is indeed how they conceive of it and how they act, and that's why we see this kind of violence against women and so on. Yeah.
All right, let me move on. You guys can have your conversation.
No.
Yeah,
Come on,
no.
this
I
is
got a lot
really
to
good.
go through here.
I want to tie this to what happened at FA. I want to tie this to what happened at FAU, because one of the things we talked about on the radio yesterday was the
I don't know if
fact.
Diana knows what we're talking. You know what we're talking about? Florida Atlantic University. Did you hear about our little confrontation yesterday with the students for justice in Palestine?
Well, you mentioned it to me, but I did not hear the details.
They're having their Israeli Apartheid Week at our local university, a very substantial Florida Atlantic University, and all the Jew hatred speakers. The United West, Trento Vision, our media team went last week to go in and videotape, and we were shut down by the police. We went yesterday. We nearly got arrested. We were shut down by the police. CJ was here running the radio station while Mark, myself, and some others were at the university, which is 10 minutes from here, and we broadcast the whole thing live, and we may be in a situation where we file a lawsuit against Florida Atlantic University for suppressing our right to be in a classroom as press. We had press credentials to be in, and they wouldn't let us go in. CJ, how are you tying all that together?
The way I'm tying it all together is one of the things we discussed on the radio yesterday. One of our guest speakers is an older man, a Korean War veteran, a local Jewish activist, and we had another World War II veteran on the phone as well. And they were saying that the parents and the grandparents need to get involved in the college students' education and realize what's happening on the college campuses. And I brought up the point that these parents really gave their children away at a very young age, first to daycare, and then to kindergarten, and then to elementary and high school, and then to college. It really is the nanny state. The parents gave control of their children over to the state in a public education setting, and now we're reaping the rewards of it. Right. We have a whole generation of Americans who are not really raised in their families at all. Right. And that makes them ripe for all of these totalitarian influences that they pick up on campuses.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes a good point. You wrote Death of the Grown Up 2007, and now Frank told us that American Betrayal is maybe getting close to publication. Tell us about the book, and when is it coming out?
It's coming out May 28th, without a doubt. So
it will happen.
I'm birthing that baby, I'm telling you.
You can take that to the bank. Yeah, the date moved several times over this spring period, but it is coming out again from St. Martin's Press, which is the publisher of The Death of the Grown Up as well. And in many ways, American Betrayal is the prequel to The Death of the Grown Up. It goes way deeper. I think in some ways, Death of the Grown Up is a manifestation of things that I was able to quite unexpectedly discover while I was really down a crazy rabbit hole of research on American Betrayal. I was not expecting to write the book I wrote. I think it's a very shocking and even destabilizing book, but I think it does explain more about how we got here, and I'll tell you how it started. Basically, if you look back at about a decade or more of writing these, in many ways, the same column week after week, trying to alert Americans to the various depredations of Islam, which could sum up a good bit of the column from various angles. You start wondering why it doesn't actually seem to have any impact. I mean, not to be vain or expect, your column to do something, but just in terms of shaping debate or getting things out there, it's very difficult, as you know. It's very difficult to move these ideas into the public square unless they're in a brown paper bag. And it struck me that people could assess the facts, say, about the repression of women or something like that is codified in Islam. And yet they still say, but Islam is a religion of peace. And so I was looking to sort of discover how the disconnect between facts and conclusions seemed to become such a part of American life, American intellectual life and public life and every political life, everything. And I started looking to see if there was any historical precedent for this and trying to just come back and back. And I did. I found it.
Oh, you did. Are you going to tell us, or do we have to wait for the book?
This is very interesting. Listen.
Well, I can tell you. I can tell you. I think it's essentially the institutionalization of the big lie in American life. And as I went back through the decades, I did come to a point where I think it really was introduced on high, and that was really with the recognition of the Soviet Union in 1933 by FDR. Because if you go back to that period, you had 4 presidents and 6 secretaries of state before Roosevelt who refused to extend diplomatic recognition to the Soviet Union, which was still only a little more than a decade old at that point, 12, 15,
right,
by the time you get to 33, and 15 years old at that point. But, through the 1920s, no one would recognize it. And that was because the Soviet Union was out to foment world revolution and out to impose its collectivist ideology on the world. Do you see a familiarity here?
Yes.
Yes. And when Roosevelt recognized it, and then you go forward from that, it required on the part of us, of Americans and other Westerners, to normalize that state, to pretend it was normal, to lie about what it was doing. And then indeed we began to lie.
Right.
And then all of this, so what the book tries to do, it's a very, it's kind of an unusual book, but it does try to bring this into concrete terms, and what followed from those decisions is actually really shocking, and we truly do not understand our history at all until you actually go back and look at it from this point of view. I feel completely gypped by my entire education, because what actually took place is not what we've been taught.
All right, Diana, we're going to take a couple of calls. We got people that are patiently hanging on.
Yeah.
So 888-565-1470 if you'd like to get in the conversation with Diana West, author of The Death of the Grown-Up and American Betrayal. Her new book, she writes a daily column. She will be on our show weekly. I think Thursdays we're going to do that, right, Diana?
Sounds good.
All right, let's take the first caller.
Okay, that's going to be Joe, and thank you for coming back when we couldn't get to you in the last hour.
Hi, Joe. You're with Tom and Diana West here.
You're quite welcome. Diana, I wanted to ask you a question about John Brennan. In the 1990s, he converted to Islam, and do you believe that he was betraying the United States with Sandy Berger in the knowledge that they were possibly co-conspirators in the fact that they allowed 9/11 to happen?
Well, that's kind of a big mouthful. I'm not aware of the Sandy Berger piece of this. I have, of course, read the reports and heard Tom's interview regarding the conversion. That does seem to be a piece of information that we need to assess from here on in, because it actually gives context to so much of what John Brennan has been about on the record. No secrets here in terms of his affinity for Muslim Brotherhood groups and indeed fostering the relationships in the government, and his hostility to anyone who wants to expose what the Muslim Brotherhood groups are doing in this country. So I think there's a big mine or a big vein here to mine, but I'm not sure it goes exactly to the 9/11 piece of it. I don't see the connection yet.
Well, are they trying to set up a coup d'etat of the American government by doing this? By putting John Brennan in the CIA so that we are basically powerless over the Muslim Brotherhood anymore? And that's where they're nullifying all of our intelligence, our Homeland Security, FBI, CIA. We're dead.
Yeah. I think that we have probably been victimized by a series of what a great historian I admire quite a lot, Stanton Evans, calls rolling coup d'etats in this country. And again, you can go back to the Soviet period where you see a very similar situation whereby you had Soviet experts purged from the State Department and other places. You had communists included in the highest security councils and roles. You certainly had infiltration by hundreds of Soviet agents into the government. So I think that we've been victimized before, and yes, we are being victimized again. I don't know that there will be an actual moment where we say the junta is here, but I think that it's kind of a slow motion erosion of liberty and destruction of our capacity to understand what's going on.
All right, thank you, Joe, very much for the question. CJ, who do you have next for Guyana?
Next, I have Bob on the line.
Hi, Bob. You're on with Diana West.
I love you guys. You're great.
This Liberal Bob? This Liberal Bob?
Oh, Liberal Bob.
Oh, Liberal
okay.
Bob. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're trying to be slick and not correctly identifying yourself today.
Oh, you're trying to slip in.
No, I did. I did. You weren't going to take my call. Okay, let me ask you a quick question. I want to roll back in time. I want to ask Diana and you guys about Iraq. Okay? Tell me
about the what?
About the wreck
was justified.
Oh, Iraq.
Oh, Iraq.
Oh, Iraq.
Okay.
What about Iraq?
I was being
it justified?
Whether it's justified.
Well, I think that the intelligence at the time that was really universally understood by all intelligence agencies in the world indicated that WMD were in Iraq. Personally, I think that the invasion and follow-up nation-building program was a disaster. I think that the failure to confront Iran by George W. Bush at that point was also a disaster.
Right.
And I think that the unending collusion with Saudi interests by the Bush administration and subsequent administrations has been also a disaster. So there's a lot to talk about there. I'm not sure what piece of it Liberal Bob has in mind.
Who knows?
Liberal Bob has in mind that are we still looking for the weapons of mass destruction or what?
Well, actually,
I think they were found in Syria.
Yes, it arrived in Canada. There was a secret transport that somehow didn't really become very interesting to people, even though MSNBC reported it.
Be nice, Bob.
I personally think that the Bush administration fell down on its job in terms of discussing the components of WMD that were indeed found in Iraq.
Oh, yeah, and, what we have found, Diana, and Claire Lopez has weighed in very heavily on this. She was, and I think Bob knows, Claire had retired 20 years with the Central Intelligence Agency. These people hated George Bush so much that they think George Bush unilaterally said, let's go attack Iraq. I mean, we had a coalition involved. The British, the Soviets, the French, everyone analyzed. We all had the same intelligence we were working off of. And much of the chemical and biological stuff was shipped to Syria, where it sits right now. I mean, that's not a secret.
30,000 dead Kurds can't all be wrong.
Yeah,
but the answer to your question is yes, it was justified.
Well, yeah, but Diana qualified it as I would qualify it also. One of the great mistakes, I agree with what Diana says, but one of the next great mistakes was allowing the Constitution of Iraq to have Sharia
as its base,
as its as the Quran as its law. I mean,
and also to follow the tenets of what we know as counterinsurgency doctrine, which was this big hearts and mind project in Iraq.
Right.
And Afghanistan that has been nothing but disastrous. I mean, I have a lot of problems with George W. Bush myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are personified by young Americans now who don't have legs or parts of their brain, having been ordered to walk the roads to curry favor with either Iraqis or Afghanis. So, I mean, there are a lot of problems with the invasion. It's certainly, in both countries, it's certainly not been a textbook example of great battle fighting or strategy. So, I mean, there are a lot of problems here, Bob, but I mean, I think that the justifications were evident in 2001, and they were not carried out well, and there are a lot of things to argue about. But
the reasons for going in, I think, were good and valid, but I don't think there was I don't think there was a plan for leaving. And I think that George Bush, bless him for his good intentions, but I think he frankly was just too idealistic, and really doesn't understand the Islamic mind. at all. And he was very heavily influenced by Natan Sharansky's thesis that really all people are freedom seekers and Democrats at heart, and you just have to liberate them and give them the opportunity to express themselves. And I think what we see around the world when we do that is people do love the opportunity to truly express themselves. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Middle East, they want to express themselves with Sharia law.
Yeah. And earlier, I don't know if you were, Bob, I don't know if you were listening. All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
We'll let you go.
Thank you for no answer.
Okay, that's great, Bob.
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to listen. He just wants to talk.
No, he just wants to talk.
But, that's talk radio. But earlier in the first hour, Diana, we had Mordecai Kadar on. And we had a fascinating conversation with him here on Trento Vision and WNN 1470 about this whole concept of the Islamic mind, and he takes a sociological approach, as you know, and he says they're tribal, trying to bring democracy to a tribal context sociologically is a square peg in a round hole, and I have made that pilgrimage back in 2003. I was willing to say, okay, let's see if all men everywhere, just as a fundamental premise of what human nature is,
right,
desire freedom.
Right.
I think that still holds true, but you can't leave them all together in the same place. You've got to pull that man out or that woman out and put them in a free society.
Yeah.
And they've got to reject this whole doctrine of Sharia, which violates the essence of what freedom and humanity is.
Yeah.
But in any event, let's move to your column for this week. What is your column about that's coming out tomorrow?
Oh, well, if I could just preface that with one point,
sure,
which is that there is a difference in the Islamic definition of freedom and the Western definition.
Mm-hmm.
And the Arabic word for freedom is Hurriya, and one of the important definitions of it is perfect enslavement to Allah. So when everyone says we all want freedom, we aren't talking about the same things, as you know. So it's an interesting concept that I think escaped the nation builders of the last two administrations.
The Dar al-Islam, in essence, what you're talking about, when everybody is of the world of Islam and everybody follows Sharia and follows Allah's words exactly perfectly.
That becomes freedom, and we would look at that and say, no, that's totalitarian.
Yeah,
right.
Disconnect, that culture clash, I think they call it.
So the coin,
and also,
coin goes out the window.
So that's why for them the jihad is a personal journey of self-discovery and an inner exploration, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
and
right.
I'm gonna agree. And also, when they have the idea, they say that Islam is a religion of peace. I actually think the Islamists believe that because of they're heading toward Dar al-Islam, where it is the perfect world, where when everybody is in the Dar al-Islam, the world is at peace. So yes, they are a religion of peace and their own little messed up
They
heads.
just have to kill.
They just have to kill
4
everybody.
billion people to get there.
I was going to ask Frank because he kept using the word Islamist,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I don't know what that word means, and I meant to ask him, Diana, what does Islamist mean?
Well, I don't use it. I think it's not one of my words. I realized a long time ago. Look, I was writing through this whole period, and so everything that came along, in those first days after 9/11, I think I probably tried out Islamofascist, Islamist, radical Islam. No, there's one kind of Islam, and there's a Muslim, and there's a devout Muslim who follows everything, and that is the kind of person that's either going to follow the jihad, support it, or live in quiescence until someone else does next to him. I mean, I realized early on that this was words of confusion, and then I met Geert Wilders, and I will never forget sitting next to him at a dinner where there were a bunch of speakers, and the words radical Islam were run together like one word all night. And he turns to me at one point and he says, "Do you believe in radical Islam?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "There's only Islam. There's only Islam. There can't be radical Islam, this Islam, that Islam." And of course, you have the head of Turkey, Erdogan, having made the same point for us and saying that Islam is Islam and that's it. And I tend to agree. If you're following the Quran, if you're following the words and deeds of Muhammad, that is Islam. And it so happens that jihad is a central component of that.
That's where I have wound up, and it's not.
Yeah, I've tried to avoid that too, but you keep coming back and keep coming back and coming back, and that's what 80% of the world believes is this absolute Sharia follow Muhammad doctrine of Islam.
Yeah.
Okay, where is this other majority that's non-existent? That's less than more than 80%. It isn't there.
Right.
You know that there's the world's.
I'm not
majority.
following you. What say that again?
He's asking where the moderates are.
I go the 80% of the world follows this form of Islam where it's Sharia.
80% of Muslims.
Yes.
Okay.
And so how can you say where the majority follows the strict guidelines of this and they call it Islam? Why does the minority get to call it's something else? It doesn't make no sense. It's kind of like
let me ask Diana this. When Frank or somebody else uses Islamism, what do you think they mean?
Well, I think that they mean Muslims acting in pursuit of Sharia and jihad and the caliphate, following the activists, perhaps. I mean, when you look at all great movements, revolutions, our revolution, the Russian Revolution, very often these movements are actually affected by a fraction of the population. They say at the time of our revolution, 20% wanted to secede from Britain, leave Britain. 20% stayed loyal, and 30.
Right.
30% stayed, undecided, and that may be the case. I think in the sense of even Geert Wilders will talk about how he's not discussing all Muslims. He is talking about the ones who follow the program. But I think the best formulation I've come across comes from Ibn Warraq, who says there is no such thing as moderate Islam. There are, however, Muslims who are moderates. So people, in other words, who are not necessarily following the program or even are ignorant of the program. However, those are not the people we have a problem with or who are having an impact on our lives. So we really have to deal with the ones who are trying to weaponize the Quran and trying to extend Sharia. And we find that those are people who both are throwing bombs and those are people who are wearing suits and going into conferences. So it isn't enough to say we have to be on guard against the violent aspects of Islam. We have to be on guard against all aspects because the drive is to extend the Sharia. And it's the Sharia where we have a problem, where our way of life is impacted. So it's I think that Islamists and so on is a way for people to use a shorthand that they hope will get them through some of the kickback in terms of discussing, my best friend Muhammad and so on, who's a very nice guy.
Yes, exactly.
And
right.
It's almost like a code just to sort of get the argument going. But
right.
I think it's a distraction because
Me
it
too.
does tend to take Islam itself off the hook.
Yeah.
And it's inside Islam where you find these imperatives to make war on all non-Muslims until the world is Islamic. So it's not like it's the extremists the extremist doctrine that is driving the problem. It may be extremist people who are actually doing it, but the doctrine is totally classical and mainstream.
Amen.
Absolutely.
So I guess for us, as a bottom line, the bad Muslim is a good Muslim.
Look how
exactly. Bin Laden's right.
Look at the profound impact.
What'd you say, Diana?
In our point of view, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's that culture clash. Freedom or bad or bad. It's
Get CJ real quickly, then I want to get her
article.
Look
at the profound impact this quasi-religion is having on us right now without having Sharia.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well,
I mean, we don't even have to have it to have a profound impact.
Right, and that's something that Yor, in her books, has made very clear, that there is a culture of accommodation that grows even when you don't have Sharia law in your code. You start reacting to it and accommodating it way in advance of an actual invasion or occupation or conquest. Yeah.
In Florida here, analogously, it's like when a hurricane is coming.
Yeah.
Right.
3 or 4 days before,
yeah.
You are geared toward that. Hasn't hit yet.
Right.
But you're geared toward it. Tell us, we got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Couple of minutes left. Tell us about your article. It's coming out tomorrow.
Right. Well, I was trying to decide between taking another bite out of Benghazi this week, which I actually ended up doing for Dispatch International. So I thought, well, I have done it for the week. And I was so fascinated by your interview with John Guandolo and that whole controversy and spreading story, despite the fact no one really wants to own it, that I did focus on Brennan again.
Good.
And
Good.
What I determined, though, in terms of getting to the piece of it that discusses the conversion, I write for papers way out there, right? I'm not writing for the Beltway set that are not particularly well informed. I don't mean to suggest that, but you do tend to need to add context for readers who are not, at least exposed day and date to this kind of thing. And giving enough context on Brennan, you end up with the conversion piece coming toward the end because it indeed is the icing on the cake. It explains so much. But people need to know what his behavior has been in order to make it make sense. And I think that's really the story of our time. We go through this period without context because our leaders deny us context. They won't touch it. Our media won't touch it. And so when you have a talk show or you have an FBI agent, former FBI agent, you have people who are following this stuff and putting it out there, unless you have context, it sounds crazy.
Sounds crazy.
And so that becomes, our big job is providing context when the elites and the media and so on, they refuse. They don't know it.
Oh, exciting. What's the title for the article?
I don't have a title yet.
Okay, that always comes last.
Can we
name it for you?
I have a suggestion for another article.
What, Mark?
I have a suggestion for another article for you, Diana. You could talk about the wonders of Trento Vision and how they're changing the world. That could be a very good article.
Well, actually, on that note, and we got to wind down here. What we do, what I have done in my life, and what we do as the United West and Trento Vision. We're advocates. We're not just analysts. We're advocates, and sometimes, tactically, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but Diana understands. Tactically, we say and do things often that provide, that push the envelope to provide a lot of space for those who are coming behind us to operate in a more legitimate fashion, if you will. So we know quite well what we're doing and how we're doing it, and it's a blast. Let me tell you, we make jihad fun here at Trento Vision.
And we provide snacks.
And we provide snacks. But if you do come in the studio, the studio rule is the guest, particularly if they're here in the last hour, as she is.
Yes.
You have to take us out for drinks.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Actually, hasn't happened yet. Don't worry. We got your barbell
we
covered.
tried to beat up our guests, but they won't. No, you guys.
It's your dream.
It's hard enough to get somebody to come here.
All right, we will set a time for you next week, and we were going to have her on for 15 minutes. We took the whole hour, which was great. It was a wonderful
Squeals
time.
of delight. Thank you.
She's a fascinating mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
You take care, and we shall see you. Diana West, thank you very much. She's going goodbye.
Bye, Diana.
And we got about a minute left. What are your thoughts, folks? 30 seconds each. Mark, what are your thoughts on the day?
Wow. Well, crazy yesterday, crazy today. It's just, we got our equipment all kind of working up spiffy. I'm all happy. I got grins on my face.
Mike?
And so,
I'm sorry. I was
30 seconds. Your thoughts on today and yesterday?
Very good. That's about it. Good.
What was your favorite part?
Actually, the call yesterday that you made on the phone while you were getting into the little dispute with that
That was
guy.
pretty interesting. I would like to hear that.
Roused me out of my...
You, mystery guest?
I enjoyed yesterday quite a bit. It was glad to see you not get arrested.
Yeah, I never want to get arrested.
Although I guess
unless we have to.
I could have chased you with a credit card if need be.
Yeah, good. All right. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. It's been amazing last couple of days. You guys were awesome at FAU yesterday. We're going to make a lot of noise about this.
You did great holding down the fort.
Let her finish.
And today, my gosh, we had Mordechai Kadar, Frank Gaffney, and Diana West. We
bad.
rock.
Not too bad.
I'm not having anybody say anything bad about us.
Not too bad, but let's give CJ a hand for yesterday. She did a great job yesterday. And right now, folks, we're going to go. We'll be back tomorrow. We will have Superman, Batman, and the Green Hornet all live in the studio.
Thanks for tuning in to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Tom Trento can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. And tune in again weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Great party, huh, guys?
Yeah, it is. So much fun.
If I do say so myself. Hey, did you know that birthday parties actually help build confidence in kids?
Yeah, I did know that.
Did you know that giving kids less sugar before bedtime helps them sleep better?
Right, of course.
Yeah, I knew that. Did you know that strollers have the right of way on sidewalks?
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, that's true. Did you know that friendly kids statistically have more friends?
Everyone knows that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, so obvious.
Hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
I didn't know that.
Think I knew that.
No, you didn't.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The next time you finally get around to rearranging that messy closet or cleaning out the garage, why not also set aside time to put your financial house in order and become more financially responsible?